Hey everyone, you're listening to the official podcast of 4playernetwork.com. Check us out at that address for everything you need to know about our community, monthly giveaways, and nightly live streams. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4player. And last but not least, you can catch the live recordings of these podcasts every single Thursday night on our Twitch channel. We hope to see you there. Enjoy. Rock and roll. Hey everyone, welcome to 4Player Podcast, episode 749. It is March 16th, 2023. I'm your host, Nick Henderson. I am joined tonight by Brad Simons.
Hello.
Who is feeling really spicy tonight, or at least I think he is. We'll see if that holds out for the rest of the show. Crispy is here as well. Hello, Crispy.
Hello.
Joining us for the first time on your brand new PC.
My new rig.
Your new rig. How's that treating you?
Oh, it's so smooth. It's like butter.
Been playing a lot of Vampire Survivor.
Vampire Survivor. Runs great.
What did they say
Beautiful.
the issue was with the boot up?
They didn't know.
Why
He didn't know what the problem was. He just plugged everything in and it didn't work, and then he unplugged everything and plugged it all back in, and then it did work, and he was just like, no.
All right.
Okay.
So he unplugged it and plugged it back in, and it worked. Cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Sometimes
How
that's
much
all it
money
takes.
did you spend on that?
Enough.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like $100.
Oh,
Yeah. That's how these things go.
damn. All right, and obviously, as you can tell, Chris Davis is also joining us. Hello, Chris Davis.
Good evening.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. So, we're going to talk about that Resident Evil 4 demo tonight. But before we do that, we got a few little bit of housekeeping. It's got some Fantasy Critic updates to discuss, and then we're going to run through some headlines for the week. But I want to start tonight by letting everybody know that I was on another podcast this week to talk about The Last of Us, which we're also going to talk about tonight. I've talked about a lot of The Last of Us this week. So that podcast, the Fantasy Files Reacts podcast, is the second one I've been on. I'm going to post a link to that in the show notes. So if you're interested in hearing more of my opinions about The Last of Us, check it out when it's available. But I also want to remind everybody, like I did last week, if you listen to the show, if you like the show, please go leave us a review. Please leave us a rating, whether you listen to us on Spotify, whether you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, wherever it is. Even if you listen to us on a platform that doesn't allow like ratings or reviews or whatever, go find some place that does and leave us a review. We would really, really appreciate it. And then, of course, the draft. We're going to jump straight into our Fantasy Critic draft. So I want to remind everybody, again, we're doing this all year long. If you haven't yet, go back and check out our first episode of the year where we did our initial draft. It's like fantasy football, but with games, which is exciting. And it's been ongoing for 3 months now, and it's starting to get real good. So
it sounds like it's don't mean to interrupt you, but it sounds like it's storming outside, yet Chris Davis did not notify me of said storm, so I'm confused.
Well, every time I notify y'all of a weather event happening, I get shit for it. So,
Wow.
like this is the shit that
I don't know about
see,
that.
I can't win for losing.
Now you get shit for not notifying us, so it's like you literally can't win.
It's when you start giving us more like details about the Doppler than the weatherman on the television. I think that's when you start getting the criticism, but we appreciate the call out, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, I'm pretty sure Chris Davis warned me about
I
think Chris Davis warned me about a tornado once. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I did also know it was coming, but I do appreciate you looking out.
If it makes you feel any better, Brad, it's a small cell. It'll be over your house in less than half an hour.
You knew about it. You knew everything.
No, I just looked it up on the radar.
Oh, yeah, the radar you have on your little dedicated monitor somewhere off to the side, I bet.
No, I opened another tab and went to KXAN. Like, what do you want from me?
The funny thing is, I have
tonight. You are so angry.
He's spicy tonight. Like I said, I have a coworker that is actually like that. Like he loves following storms. So like he has like 6 monitors on his desk, and one of them always has like weather radar pulled up on. So like maybe Chris Davis is just like his spirit animal or something. I don't know.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Anyways, we have, it's time to do our weekly Fantasy Critic update. So um, we've had some pickups last week. We had just kind of talked about some of the games. The good thing about the timing of this is because every Thursday they reveal the bids that are currently, because we're doing private
Oh
bidding, so
yeah, I
nobody.
haven't looked at those. Anything this week?
So we have one this week. Um, so
I
the way it
mean,
works. So hold on, let me get through this. Every Thursday they reveal the bids because we're doing private bidding. So we have until Saturday when everything closes to make any final bids, and then whoever gets the highest bid on those games, obviously gets those games on their roster. So it works out because it usually reveals itself at like 7 o'clock, and then we're live an hour later, and boom. So last week we had just talked about these games. So we've had some pickups. Brad actually picked up 2 games last week. He
finally,
picked
my
up,
first pickups.
yeah. He picked up. Oh, we did. By the way, we did officially drop Valheim for you. That was your. Brad has used his unconditional drop for the year on Valheim, and he replaced that with Dredge, which was not on my radar, but it is now. So thank you for that. I don't know if you have a pitch
It's
for
a
like what.
it's a Lovecraftian fishing game.
It's an
Yeah,
ARPG.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
don't say
It's a
that, Chris
sports
Davis.
game
Or
because
Chris.
it's got fishing in it, so we call it a sports game. But it's I don't know. I mean, it looks cool. It looks cool, and I saw some previews. I saw some impressions. It just looks neat,
You know,
honestly. So I
it
needed
doesn't
some pickups. There wasn't like some grand plan behind it. I just looked at some
I'm
upcoming
really glad
games that
you
look
did
pretty
though,
cool
because
and
like this is a
lowballed
game
them
that
a little bit.
yeah, this is a game I had no idea. I didn't know anything about, and once it was on the bid there, I looked it up and I was like, this actually looks really cool. It doesn't look anything like this other game I'm about to name, but like atmospherically, it kind of is giving me similar vibes, and that's Inscription. It's obviously not a card
Oh,
game, but like just kind of like the weird combination of genres where it's like, obviously, that was like a card based like horror game, and this is like a fishing
yeah.
based horror game. I don't know, it's just giving me
I mean,
similar kind of like.
there's some like Lovecraftian flavor to the horror in Inscription, I'd say. So that makes
Yeah.
sense a little
um
bit.
but it looks cool, and that's coming fairly soon. You also picked up Fuga Melodies of Steel 2.
Still, no one looked that up to see what it was. They
uh
just said, "I don't know what that is." Blah. That's what everybody
it's
said about
it's like a.
that's what everybody said about Trails to Azure,
It's
which has
furry.
come out.
It's furry Advanced Wars. Is all you need to know about it.
This is CyberConnect 2, and this is sort of they've always had this like passion series, if you will, ever since Tel Concerto on the PS1, or maybe you've heard of the red the I think they call it like the Little Bronx Tale series or whatever, like more broadly. But they've always put out these games that they look like they're furry friendly, but I mean they've literally been putting out games in this broader series since the 90s. And what were the ones on there was one on DS. I'm just forgetting. Anyways, last year or 2 years ago, they put out a game called Fuga Melodies of Steel, which is like a pretty cool, like looking tactical, like tank game, side-scrolling tank game. Solita Robo is what they call it. What am I thinking of? I mean that is what I mean it's that's the Japanese name for it. But Solita Robo. Anyways, the first one people liked, and it was fairly well received, mostly because it seemed like a pretty unique, like I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's that tank. It's the it's like a tactical tank game where you put furry children to power the death cannon, but then they die. But you got to
Oh
make
man.
that choice sometimes as you're playing the game of like, do I want to sacrifice one of my furry children to power the death cannon to make sure I win this battle? Anyways,
Crispy's
people said
nodding
it
like
was
he.
pretty cool.
Yes, the answer to that question is yes.
um, and they're putting out another one, so I figure with some small tweaks, it's more or less the same game. I don't expect this one to like score off the charts, but I needed to fill my roster with things that are I guess, not gonna like mysteriously be terrible, or I mean, or magic or secretly be terrible, which can happen, right? For with
Any,
unknown
any
games.
anything can happen for
I
sure.
wanted something very known, and this felt very known. Well, to me at least. Maybe not
Yes.
to y'all, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. I was surprised you actually picked up 2 games last week, but yeah. And Chris Davis, I knew this was Chris Davis's bid almost immediately. I've heard him talk about it, but he picked up Chia, um, which also didn't. We've seen this game a couple times over the years, past couple years, I guess. That indie open world exploration game where you play as a little girl who can like transform into animals, right? Like
It's chill Breath of the Wild.
yeah, chill, bro. Yeah, that's an interesting way to describe it. That's also giving it, you know, that's setting the bar pretty high. I suppose.
No,
But
Have you seen the gameplay footage of this game?
does
no,
look
I don't.
really cool,
It
and
does
it
look
is a
cool. I
game
could
I definitely
absolutely
want
plan
to
on playing
try.
this.
But it's so I'm so like I was never confident enough to bid. It's always been on my like list, like long list of like, oh, maybe bid on these, but oh man,
This is
it's
coming
one of
to.
those. It's one of those that we could be biomutant by it. You know, like I feel like we see a lot of like cool mechanics. It trailers really well. It seems like it has a lot of heart. Like the way you can like get around the world does seem like really cool, and like Breath of the Wild,
Right.
even maybe even more like physicsy even than that. But you know, what are you really finding in the world? I don't know. I'm skeptical but excited.
And
If that
this is
makes
also
sense.
interestingly enough, and we've known this for a while. I think it was in one of the first trailers they released for it, but it's coming day and date to PlayStation Plus. So
Yep. And
that's how I'll
it's
be playing it.
coming next week.
Yep. So Chris Davis will have some points
Finally.
on the board, hopefully, within the next week or so.
Hopefully, you never know. He could be
Uh,
losing points.
he could be. He could be.
Tell you
That is
what,
the gamble.
like they have a whole series of promotional videos for this game. They're all really short, but they show off all these different mechanics. One of the recent one was them talking about their fully modeled and created ukulele. Like you remember in The Last of Us Part 2 how you could
Yes.
play Ellie could play the guitar like fully controlled? It's that, but then you combine that with the song mechanics of Ocarina of Time to do special magic powers.
That sound, dude. This is again, everything about this game sounds cool, but I totally get what Brad is saying, which is just like, but like we're not invested in this world yet. It's not like like you have a new Zelda game coming out, so you know I'm invested in Zelda's world. Like they have a lot to prove, and if the world and like the story and kind of the lore, like the background is not like interesting enough to kind of I don't know I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like if everything in the background there is not good enough to like justify like this wealth of mechanics, like it could fall apart. I don't think it's going to, but we'll find out in a week. I think I think it's a solid choice. We'll see what happens. Speaking of games that you might lose points on, though, we talked about this in Discord. You may want to consider dropping Dead Island 2.
We don't need to be too convincing. I mean,
Ooh, fucker.
he'll do the. I think he'll come around and do the smart thing.
You got some
We'll
time.
see.
You got
We'll
some time
see.
on that. The previews for that game have been not kind to it, and that's super
I
unfortunate.
mean, the
Also,
main complaint
previews
about the
don't matter.
previews
None
that
of
I've
this was
read,
smart.
the main complaint I've read in the previews is that it's supposed to be linear like the original Dead Island. And okay, I can understand that being a critique. I don't think that's necessarily a detriment to the experience.
Yeah, but it's also not the only thing that has been said about this game.
And it's also, you got to remember, it's not how you feel about it. It's about how critics feel about it. That's
Yeah.
what's
Let me tell
important
you, in previews when they're saying I was already kind of sick of this, that's a bad sign. Abort, run,
Abort.
far,
Okay.
fast.
All right.
Come on, Chris
And
Davis. I want you to rally. I want you to rally maybe more than anyone. This Mortal Kombat dream come true. I don't want you to squander it on Dead Island. Drop that shit. I'm telling you now, drop that shit. At best, you're looking at a low 70 at best, and that's not good in Fantasy Critic.
I know. I'm thinking about it, but I need something to grab me first before I do that.
Offer to trade for System or not System Shock, Suicide Squad.
No,
I will not take it.
that game's not coming out this year.
Crispy.
That's possible, yeah.
Crispy picked up, and this is actually, yeah, I'm not entirely surprised by this because Crispy did tell us his strategy last week. Crispy picked up Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon, which Brad is going to talk about later tonight because he's played the demo for it. Comes out
Which
tomorrow.
is the opening.
So bear that in mind when he gives us his impressions of it.
Do you think I care so much about Fantasy Critic that
Yeah.
I'm gonna like?
Mhm.
But my opinion doesn't even influence the score.
No, I
Which
know,
already has scores.
but you might. Well, I'm just saying. Just saying.
I
You're
like
gonna-
Bayonetta. Who
You
are
you ain't gonna fucking psych me out.
What?
It's trying though.
What? No, that
It already
none
has
of
a
this makes sense. This makes sense.
Whatever, Brad. This is a fantasy podcast now. This isn't about video
I don't
games
know.
anymore.
I wasn't super kind to Wo Long last week, which I feel bad about. Maybe it was just because no one picked it up.
Maybe. Maybe.
Actually, that does kind of match up with like
Maybe.
your entire shtick of shitting on games that are coming out. Like
What?
you shit on Sea of
Honestly,
Stars,
this
even though there's a
entire
demo
year
for
of
it that
games has been
you don't
really
like.
surprisingly impressive. I've said on more than one occasion that I probably have enough to play for the rest of the year already. That's how good this year has been. Surprisingly,
It's been pretty wild so far. So with that in mind, we have one bid this week. It looks like 9 Souls which was this is the next game I believe from Red Candle.
yeah,
The guys,
it is.
the team
I
that
played
did.
I played the demo.
Yeah, I played it when we were talking about all the demos from.
You played the demo, Nick?
Yeah, I played the demo. I played.
I would say
I
this
only
is a
played
nitpick, but man, he doesn't have many slots left.
I don't have many slots left.
It was
But
pretty,
again, you gotta remember,
good, though.
you gotta remember, and we've talked about this in Discord a lot this week. My list is filling up, but
That's
there's
true.
there's
That's
like
true.
4 or
You're
5
gonna
of
be
those
dropping
games
stuff.
that literally could slip out of the year, and I would be willing to
I'm
bet
trying to
at
think who
least
would
2
even
of
know
them.
about it besides me and you, Nick. Really?
At least no one might know about it. Although, you know,
This smells like Nick.
all I'm saying is at least at least 2 games on my list are going to slip, and it's probably going to be more. To be
I'll say
totally
this:
honest,
this game was on my list of like potential bids, but I kind of was waiting till a little bit later in the year. I don't know. I feel like indie games that aren't coming out like in the near future are a little like nerve wracking as far as bids because I shouldn't even tell you all my strategy or my
that is
theory
the
on
one
this.
caveat to doing these updates every week is like we're just kind of like telling each other our strategies, which is maybe not a good thing, but it's good for our
it's not a good
listeners. Like our
idea.
listeners
But,
love
but
it.
I'm going to tell y'all anyways, just because I want everybody to be competitive, I guess. The thing is, with the reason I bid on something like Hellblade or something like, or especially like Final Fantasy Remake 2, is the publisher is going to say this shit ain't coming out this year. But with an indie game, you might not hear anything from the dev, and if you don't hear anything, then it's not actually droppable as one of your drops, your will not release drops.
Right.
So I'm a little iffy, like because there's some indie games that I think are like potentially really exciting. But
Like
I'm
for
like,
example,
ooh.
like
Well, you
there's
don't have to say.
well, no. I'm
something.
just saying there was last year there was like an indie horror game that called Luto that I'm still really excited for. But it said it was coming out in 2022 all the way up until like December, like last 10 days or something
That's
in
what I'm
December, and
talking
they're like
about. That's
they're
what I'm
like
talking about.
coming out next year.
Like
So
there was one that I don't even want to say what it is, but like the developers being super cagey. Like people seem to think it's coming out this year, but the developers like, oh, we'll say. And it's like, bitch,
bitch,
shut
I
the
got
fuck
points
up.
writing on this.
Yeah,
What game?
I want this game, but I don't trust you. So I don't know.
What
He's not
game?
gonna
I'm
tell us. He's
I'm
not gonna
bidding on
tell us.
stuff like fucking Fuga because I'm not trying to lose points. I'm just trying to make some safe points. So we'll see. We'll see.
What game is it, Brad? You gotta tell us.
I mean, you'll find out when I inevitably bid on it, I guess, or not.
Okay.
He's not going to remember this conversation. So that's all the updates we have this week for Fantasy Critic. So of course, tune in, continue to tune in. If you're in our Discord at discord.gg/4Player, we do have a Fantasy Critic channel that I encourage you guys to keep an eye on. There's a link kind of posted in the description of that channel if you want to jump straight to the actual Fantasy Critic League. I also have been kind of keeping tabs of all the points and stuff, the rosters in my own like Google Doc, and I have, as of this past weekend, I posted it on the front page of 4playernetwork.com. So if you want like a really quick, easy way to check what where the stats are, you can go to our front page and you can see everything. And I've been updating it pretty much every day as points come in and pickups go through and everything. So keep that in mind. Also, before we get into anything else, I just want to point out, I meant to say this earlier during housekeeping. You may have noticed Nolan is not here. He hasn't been for a couple weeks. He's not going to be back until April. He's got a lot of stuff going on in his life right now, so he is a little too busy to be on the show, but he will be back in April, so just keep that in mind. He sends you his best wishes, and
He's
his
just got stuff going on.
a lot of stuff going on. So, I want to go over some headlines this week. It's been kind of a quiet week. I was really hoping for some juicy news this week, but there's not a ton. Grasping at straws here a little bit for news. I put on here the delay of System Shock, mostly because it's in our Fantasy Critic League. Still in Crispy's roster. It was scheduled for March, and you, up until last week, Crispy, you were like, why does it still say March of 2023? It is March of 2023. Well, they officially delayed it to May 30th. It didn't actually have a date in March, but now it has a official date in May. So not entirely surprised that they pushed it.
That's fine.
I think it had more to do with they were trying to get a big update out for the beta before launching the actual thing, and they didn't get it out until I think this past week. So I think they just went ahead and pushed it back to May. So that's coming at May 30th. Very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And the other two news topics I have here are both kind of intrinsically linked together and to the main topic of conversation we're going to have about The Last of Us on HBO, because that show ended this past week. But there were two kind of big things that came out this week. One of which being, and I thought this was just interesting, and this is all about numbers, so like, what does this even really mean? But the viewership numbers for The Last of Us HBO series have come out, and with HBO specifically, it's interesting because they also have Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones, as you may know, is one of the most popular TV shows to ever exist. And right now they have House of the Dragon. So The Last of Us surpassed House of the Dragon viewership numbers, which I was pretty shocked by. Although not by much. It looks like The Last of Us tallied up at 30.4 million views, and House of the Dragon had 29 million. So I think that's pretty crazy impressive.
It's time for the world to start taking us gamers seriously. That's what I think.
I mean,
Don't
I guess you
fuck
could,
with us.
if you want to be a smartass about it, Brad, that may be accurate. But I think it's more of just kind of speaks to the story in general that it was originally told in that game, and how it has really nothing to do with the fact that it's a video game. It's just a really good story, and it happened to translate very well to television.
Yeah, I mean, I think word of mouth from gamers helped this one for sure. I mean,
sure. Well, they
yeah.
had the install base. They already had the install base because there's a certain number of gamers who love the game who are obviously going to tune in for that. But the same thing kind of with Game of Thrones. The people who've read the books are obviously going to tune in to watch the show. So it's kind of they're kind of an even footing there. The one thing that The Last of Us did that doesn't usually happen, and I don't even think it really happened with House of the Dragon, although I don't have the specific data on it, but The Last of Us managed to surpass, like, every episode surpassed the episode that preceded it in viewers. So the viewer count steadily rose, and typically it's the other way around. Like, the first episode of a new series usually has the highest view count, and then it just kind of goes down as people drop off throughout a season. But the finale of The Last of Us had the highest view count of the entire series. So,
but question, just to clarify that, is that like the premiere airing of it, or does that include the VODs afterwards?
I'm not entirely sure how. I mean, I think it includes the VODs, but they have it depends on how they look at it in terms of like when's the cutoff for taking this data, because obviously the VODs you can continue to rack up data over time, but they are comparing apples to oranges or apples to apples here, so they're looking at the same window of time for House of the Dragon.
Oh
Um,
man, it's gonna be the same shit, right? If if the rest, wait, what? This is news, right? So we're not really
yeah,
talking about the show yet. Okay.
right. I mean, no, you can.
I just can't wait for the same arguments to like happen again with the
No,
show.
yeah, it's I was like,
People are
because
gonna be
it's
so mad.
uh yeah, I'm just like bracing myself for the inevitable
What if they change
heartbreak,
it?
and they're not going to. I mean, they're going to change stuff, but they've
I
already
think it
pretty
would be
firm.
worse if they changed it. I think it
No,
would
no,
be
no.
Instead of
like,
playing golf, they're gonna play cricket. I mean, what are you gonna
well, I
change it?
mean, like I don't know, man. What if they're just like, let's completely restructure
No, they've.
The
I
Last
mean,
of Us Part Two?
they've already said they're I mean, the structurally some things may change just because there's a couple aspects to this, because you're talking about going into season 2. It's a game that's split primarily right down the middle, where you have one section you're playing as one character, which could be an entire season of a show, and then the next season. So like if they
I
wanted to do
apologize.
that. Hmm?
We are getting into just the show conversation we're
Sure.
gonna be having later.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's topical. I mean, I'm not super worried about structure here. We're talking about The Last of Us, and this is relevant because it's a very, very popular show now. Like, my mother-in-law has watched this entire show
Yeah,
and
but
fucking
you
loved
never
it.
know. I mean, so was The Witcher, right? The Witcher was like everyone
Not
was
like
talking about
this,
The
though.
Witcher, and
Not like this.
it did well. The Witcher did extremely well.
Yeah.
That
Sure.
first season, and
Like it kind
people
of
were going nuts.
reinvigorated people's interest in Henry Cavill.
Yeah,
So
and the game even. Yeah, I mean, it kick-started
Sure, but
Cavill's career.
I don't think
Honestly,
it ever really got the universal. I say universal, but like
it didn't get
more or
like
less say.
much critical praise,
I mean,
maybe, but
if you look at
it's
like
just
the
shocking how much
IMDb
people
scores,
don't care about that fucking show anymore.
if you look at the IMDb scores for the first season of The Witcher, even though it was very, very popular and it was doing very well and it was kind of reinvigorating interest in the franchise, it was still averaging like 6s and
No,
7s on
yeah,
almost
because
all of its episodes.
because it was fucking mid. I
Yeah.
get it.
So, and I liked that first season of The Witcher. But there's something super accessible about this. Like I said, my kind of personal anecdote is that like, my mother-in-law got super hooked on this show, and she doesn't watch horror. She's not into zombies. In fact, every time there was an infected on screen, she was like freaking the fuck out. But she stuck with it for like the characters and the journey that they were on, and like there's just something super accessible about the story. It translated very well. But speaking to The Last of Us Part 2, they've already been very open about the fact that they are adapting Part 2. They are planning on telling the story as it exists. There's going to be changes to it structurally, because you just kind of have to, translating from game to show. And not to mention, the people who are hooked on the show are hooked on the show because of Joel and Ellie. And you could not tell, and I don't think you could just dedicate an entire season to Abby and have no Ellie involved and expect the audience to stick around. Like,
yeah,
you
you're
have to
gonna have
find
to
a
jump
way.
back and forth each episode between them to tell what's happening at the exact same time.
Not
You
to
still
mention,
open. They still open with Abby, but the
yeah,
thing is, I
but like,
feel like so The Last of Us 2. I kind of want to talk about this later, but whatever. The Last of Us 2 had like flashback sequences, right? And
yeah.
without getting into detail, I feel like those still have to be played as flashback sequences. I
Oh,
feel
they
like they
are.
don't work
I think they will
if
be.
they're just like chronologically like thrown
No, no,
into
no.
like whatever they're planning. In fact, the whole ending of The Last of Us. Remember how there was so much talk when they announced the sequel, or even before the sequel was even announced, of like that was a great story. It ended perfectly. That ending was awesome. It was like a great way to end this
Yeah,
story. It's dark,
absolutely.
it's open ended. Who knows where this story goes, but it's like it is what it is, right? It's weird in the minds of probably the viewer of the show, right?
No,
Because
actually, my
the viewer of the
mother-in-law.
show is probably like, well, the next day, she's probably just going to be like, no, really. You know, but in terms of like a gamer, we never thought a sequel was going to come, and when the sequel came, it was like much, much, much later, right?
Right.
But the show viewer doesn't view a show like that.
No.
It's just, to them, it's just like, well, what happens the next day?
And not to mention, they confirmed they
But
were
you
getting
don't
a
want to
season
think about what
2.
happens the next day because then it all falls apart.
Well, and they also confirmed that there was a season 2, like 3 episodes into the fucking show. So like people watching the show, unlike the people who played the first game and got there and were like, we may never get a sequel, and this is going to be it. It hit different, and people who got to the finale of the show are now looking at it as like, okay, well, what happens next because of the second season, which changes things a bit, obviously. But
Yeah.
we're getting into the weeds. We're going to talk about The Last
Yeah.
of Us here in a couple of minutes.
Can we talk about
connected?
really quickly the other thing that was announced about The Last of Us?
I don't know what you're alluding to.
The Blu-ray release is on July 18th.
Yeah.
So for those of us who don't have an HBO subscription, hey,
Wait,
But still buy Blu-rays.
yes,
I did. I ordered the Steelbook. Sorry, go ahead.
I thought you were just waiting for it all to be out. You're like generally anti-sub, even with like shows and stuff.
typically yes. I don't buy subscriptions anymore if I can help it.
But a lot of shows don't come like to like physical, right?
Also, just to for the record, assuming you haven't already used this, can't you just do like a free trial of HBO now and just binge the whole thing in a day?
I'm sure I could, but I don't want to consume this particular story like that.
Okay.
I hope you like it. I think it's probably gonna be expensive.
It's $50. All right.
That's just fine.
But the other headline that kind of came out of this, obviously, is like everyone's talking about The Last of Us right now, obviously. So Neil Druckmann's making the rounds. He's going on a bunch of shows and whatnot. He was on Kind of Funny this week, and obviously there's been a lot. This has kind of reinvigorated the talk about like, well, is The Last of Us Part 3 happening? And on that show, he said this. He said, I know the fans really want The Last of Us Part 3. I hear about it all the time, and all I can say is that we're already into our next project, so the decision has already been made. I can't say what it is, but that's the process we went through. That there was a lot of consideration about different things, and we picked the thing that we are most excited for. So obviously not confirming one way or the other whether it's The Last of Us or not. In fact,
I know what happened. I know what happened. He went to Sucker Punch and he ripped Ghost of Tsushima from their hands and saying, "This is mine now. I'm gonna give it the old Druckmann flavor." Isn't that his thing?
What? What are you talking about?
What?
Remember he did that with
don't follow
Uncharted. Right? Is that supposedly what happened with Uncharted?
No.
Who had? Wait, no, wait. Who are you saying had Uncharted?
He bust down the door and he's like, "This is my game now."
I don't even know how to respond to that, Brad.
Even like Nolan North said that shit. Something like that. Am I making shit up?
I think you're making shit up.
I think Alzheimer's is kicking in tonight.
I think Brad has on something
I'm not
tonight.
crazy here. But yeah, I think it's funny the idea of him like going around Sony like taking franchises.
I don't think that's what's happening.
I mean,
we're talking about Naughty Dog. I mean, I've never thought of Uncharted that way before, and even if there is some kernel of truth to that, like that hardly establishes a pattern. They've done Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter.
Fucking joke.
Okay, then the question stands. One, it's two. I have two questions. One, what do you realistically think their next project is? Now that we
Crash Bandicoot, I want to see them like fucking surprise the world. Say, I know you're expecting some prestige ass bullshit from us, but Neil Druckmann wanted to return to Crash Bandicoot. Well, I guess they can't because they don't own it anymore. So I wanted to do another Jak and Daxter game. We're calling it Jak 4.
I think that ship is long since sailed.
Dude, how sick would that be?
I mean, I would love a new Jak and Daxter, but
it's not even like a prestige Jak and Daxter. It's just
they won't even put out a remaster collection of the Jak games. So they're not going to bother doing Jak 4.
Why is Kraken Daxter? Yeah,
I mean,
it'd be great.
They've already said more or less that they're at least for the time being done with the Uncharted franchise. I think the rumor is if Sony had any interest in continuing the franchise at the moment, somebody else is probably working. And a lot of people seem to think Bend is working on one.
Yeah. For sure.
So what I think is happening is they're going to go off and work on. They have Factions, which is going to be their pseudo continuation to Part 2.
But he's only involved in that. Like that's not
Exactly,
That is even
yeah.
that's not
What-
considered their like next major.
But
project.
the other half of Naughty Dog, I think they're going to go off and work on a new IP because they haven't had a new IP in close to 15 years at this point. What I think they'll probably do is that
Well,
another Last
came
of
out in
Us will
2013.
come.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, but it started development well before that.
I know.
Well, there will be a Last of Us Part 3, but I think what's going to happen is the team that developed the Part 1 pseudo remake is going to be the ones that are on that project.
The thing is, but here's the thing: Neil Druckmann is so integrated into that franchise, especially like he is literally co-showrunner of the HBO show.
Yeah.
He's involved in every conversation about that game.
And
about
he was
that show.
also heavily involved in the Part 1 remake development.
I just what I'm saying is like I don't.
They're not going
If the Last of Us Part 3 is happening, I don't think it's going to be. It's not being handed off to the quote unquote B team. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be. It's either Last of Us Part 3 is either not happening right away, or it's going to be, or it is what they are. Like because obviously he can't say one way or the other what this next project is. So he's kind of beating around the bush with this quote. But like. He could very well be talking about, yes, we're actively developing The Last of Us Part 3. The decision's already been made. We're already working on it, but he can't say it.
I think that's probably more likely than anything else. Honestly.
I mean, given the success of the show, I mean, the thing is, this decision was probably made prior to the success of the show, so it's kind of like...
I mean, the problem I see is I think Sony's doing the hard math, looking what they did. They built up an entire studio just to make a remake of The Last of Us Part 1. And that studio is not going to go back to support work. They're going to be working on their own games. So if they're not working on... They trained making this remake on how to use Naughty Dog's engines and technology and techniques. So if they're not making... Sure. If Uncharted is dead or dormant for the foreseeable future...
I think is the term, yeah.
And what are they going to work on? That's the only logical project in my head.
The only thing that sticks out to me in this quote specifically is that he closes it by saying, "We picked the thing we are most excited for," which sounds like something you say to someone when you're trying to let them down easy. It's like, I know you want The Last of Us Part 3, but we picked the thing that
it's the
we
other
were
way
excited
around.
about.
I know you probably like us to try something or do something new because that's typically been our pattern, or something, you know, like go back to Uncharted or whatever. Just kind of take a break from The Last of Us. Fuck you, this is what we wanted to work on. I mean, I think it could be read either way, honestly.
Who's working on Factions?
I mean, it is Naughty Dog, but Naughty Dog is so big now. It's like
maybe they're going all in on that. Maybe that's what he's saying.
Oh,
no, they're multiple teams.
And he said, "This ain't multiplayer anymore, bitch. We're telling a story.
We're telling a story. It's a giant games as service game, but with a story."
In these interviews, he has already specifically said they have this.
It's not Factions.
They had this Last of Us multiplayer game, which we're going to find out more later this year. So I'm going to assume, like around E3, we'll find out more about it. But it's separate.
Cory Barlog had to end his, God of War reboot in 2 games, like he said, right? This is the end of the Norse mythology series because Neil Druckmann kicked down the door and he said, "This is my franchise."
He's like, "I'm going to make a good God of War for once."
Think about it.
You're trying to make this a running joke. I don't think it's going to work.
Kratos, right? He turned Ellie into Kratos.
Neil Druckmann goes to Sony leadership and he's like, "Imagine if we had a God of War game, but it was good."
The most fearful thing I think about is that Sony, it is known that Sony has about 10 different projects in the works that are designed to be long-time monetization projects.
Yes. I would play the fuck out of that. I would play the fuck out of that. Just like a simmering psychological analysis of Sweet Tooth as a character.
I mean,
that doesn't sound terrible.
Voiced by Will Arnett.
I mean, I'm just saying that Sony's long-term goal is to have a lot of long-term funding projects, games as a service titles.
Yeah. And I don't think you're going to have to worry about. I mean, here's the thing. Naughty Dog is making
one of those. It's called Factions 2.
I know, but again, that's not
Druck is above games as a service, so it ain't. That's not what the A team's going to be working on.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
And
he might be a big
Dog
Destiny fan.
He's
Naughty
probably the
Dog
fucking
is-
reason
oh
it didn't
my
make
God.
it into his second game in the first place.
No, he was like this. He was like sculpting it like fucking Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind with the mashed
mountain?
potatoes, and he's like, "This is something. This is like we need more time on this. This is crazy."
I was thinking more like Richard Dreyfuss and Mr. Holland's Opus, but I'm with you. I'm with
The
you.
children
When
don't
he's yelling at his
understand
deaf
any of
son?
those references.
Yeah.
I haven't seen either of these movies.
What about
Okay,
what about
that-
Richard Dreyfuss and what about Bob?
Ooh, that's underrated. I like
What
that
about Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws? Does that somehow work?
You've at least seen Jaws, and
Well,
you get
yeah, I'm just
consolation
asking if-
points for that.
I'm just asking if somehow this analogy works with Jaws too. I don't know. Probably not. Anyways, so who the fuck knows what's going on with Naughty Dog? But we'll see, I guess. But obviously, we wanted to, Brad and I are the only people here who have actually watched The Last of Us on HBO. So I don't know how much time we want to spend going
Played the game.
into it. Yeah. So I guess on. So I guess my question, Crispy, you are
Same thing, right? How different is the show from the game?
It's a very faithful adaptation.
I feel like I saw the Broadway version, and now you're asking me to go watch the off-Broadway version, and I'm sure they do a wonderful job.
The
Broadway
key
version was
moments
pretty
have been
good.
recreated more or less. It's very faithful.
It's very faithful, but the little things that they did change are really, they work. With a few minor exceptions. With a few minor exceptions.
A few minor exceptions. Left Behind wasn't as good, mostly.
You know
because I
what
think as
is
a video
really
game,
cool
it was
about
much more potent. But
Impact.
what's really cool about the video game is you get these really heavy emotional scenes with like all this character work, all this drama, and then it kind of beats on you for a while, and you come out the other side and you're like, oh, just mentally drained, and then they put a gun in your hand and say go shoot people, and it's like, yeah, this is what I need right now. You don't get that with the show, like you're just watching the misery, and you're not actually getting to like fucking murder people.
It's been fun
That's
watching this this weekly cycle of the people who have not played the game, who are kind of experiencing the story for the first time, and it's just this endless cycle of new episode, and then it's like 24 hours of people just talking about how hard they cried the night before, and they're like, let's do it again next week.
Yeah, like sad was not. I don't know.
You can tell they got a lot of feedback about how few zombies there were in the show, because one of the things they said about season 2 is there's gonna be a lot more zombies.
Like I don't,
even though there's like less zombies in the fucking second game, like aren't there?
No, there's a lot.
It feels like you're doing way more gameplay with like the wolves and the scars and the people in California.
You're doing way more of everything in Last of Us 2. Let's be real.
Yeah.
There are big set pieces. There are a lot of big set pieces that involve the infected, and there's a lot of there's a lot of situations in which you are encountering human and infected enemies simultaneously, which you didn't get a lot of that in the first game, if any. I'm trying to remember. But here's the thing, and everybody likes to bring up the infected thing, especially in regards to this first season. But like this was the first season. You got to imagine the budget was not as high as it was. Not like the sky wasn't the limit. They hadn't proven themselves yet as like having the Game of Thrones potential, right? So they didn't get like the infinite budget there. And already it's based on a game that's, like they told that game amounts to like 12, 13 hours of gameplay, and they told it in 10 hours of television roughly. So, it's just, of course there's going to be more infected in the second season. And also they've confirmed too that it's going to be more than 2 seasons. The second game which is obviously like there's no way in hell they could ever tell that entire story from The Last of Us 2 in one 10-episode season. So we're going to get at least 2 more seasons.
So are they going to do
plot, though. The whole plot of the first season is that this immune girl could be like the cure for all of this, right?
Right.
Right.
And
So
like,
knowing that there's more
you,
story is like,
I,
oh, come on.
Well, it's just like
I
it makes
I mean, I'm
you
saying
kind of
you don't
infected,
feel
kind
you
of.
don't. I think one of my it's a show I liked, but one of I think the flaws of the show is you don't feel the zombie threat, and I feel like you have to feel the zombie threat when like the core driving plot is
They started out.
this girl is the potential cure, and we need to get her across the country to this place because she is could be the savior of the world.
They
I mean, on
they
paper that's the
started.
plot, and you need to feel the threat. Because
So they
honestly, it
started the
seems like it's
season.
pretty easy to live in this world in terms of like it being a zombie apocalypse.
They started the season pretty strong. Like every episode up until 5, and there's this big moment in 5 where there's a lot of fucking infected, and then everything after that moment, there's only like there's sporadic at best, and there's maybe like 2 or 3 more scenes for the rest
I'd
of the show where
argue
you actually see an infected.
I'd
Um,
argue episode 2 was the only one where it actually felt legitimately dangerous. Even in episode 5, it just seemed like one isolated incident, right? And not like, you didn't even get the feeling that entire like cities were over. Well, whatever. What are we talking about here?
I mean, this is the kind of shit I like to talk about, but obviously I don't want to get into the nitty gritty here.
Yeah, I feel like we could
I will
get
say this.
too
I will
deep
say
into
this. If you are into like deep dive conversation, that podcast that I mentioned earlier, we talked for like 2 hours about almost entirely the finale, uh,
Oh
and
shit.
looking ahead into season 2 of the show. So maybe consider that because I don't think we're going to go into the deep dive
Yeah, you're right.
necessarily here. But
The only other thing I want to say is in terms of like storytelling and mixed with game design or whatever. The In terms of like Left Behind is probably my favorite Last of Us anything, and like
mhm.
that was the one thing where I thought like the show just really couldn't live up to that DLC, and like one of my favorite like
You couldn't
things
do
that
like the arcade moment or
no, that's the
the
thing, dude. That arcade moment was so good. They
Oh.
even ripped it off in the second game again. But that's like one of the best like story
Or even
moments
just the water gun
in
fight. Like,
it. Yeah, no, all that shit was great. But that arcade thing, yeah, that was one of the best like narrative things they've done in that entire series. And like they instead of even attempting to do that, they just played some Mortal Kombat 3 or whatever. And I'm like, this is not even close to the same. I don't know.
No, you're right.
That that
You're
that was like the one episode that probably actually let me down a little bit, mostly because that was the one I was most excited about, I think.
That's fair. I mean, I still think that episode succeeded in what it was trying to do because when it came down to like the important things that kind of move the plot ahead, like those moments still landed very very well for me. And that's what I think is kind of miraculous about this show, about this adaptation specifically, is that like all of the beats that work so well in the game that that they attempted to recreate in the show worked. And like all of those things, like I've said it a few times before already, but like watching, I didn't watch the entire season, but I watched like 3 or 4 episodes in the same room with my mother-in-law, who is obviously not interested in playing the game, has no prior knowledge of this, and like seeing her reactions to this story and just being like on the edge of her seat and just being totally invested in these characters that she had no prior investment in, like that only would have that is just like the best indicator that like what they're doing is working. And I never expected it to work to work as well as it did. And yeah, I don't know, man.
I wish I had
Good.
that. I got complete Malia watched it all with me, but she was
Mhm.
like, I tried to talk to her a little bit about the
And she's
show
like, "Shut up,
after
stop
the
talking."
episodes. And her response is like, look, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I just don't care enough about the show to carry on a conversation about it. I was like, oh God.
Damn.
Okay. I mean, you don't have to watch it with me,
oh,
but at
that's
least he was
like
honest.
that was like that's even worse than just being like I fucking hate this show. Fuck you for making me
No.
like that. Oh, just
That's
cruelty.
brutal. That's fucking brutal.
It was. It was.
The
But I mean,
cruelty of
I
apathy.
I appreciate the honesty, and she was being honest when she says she doesn't mind watching it with me. So that's where
You
we
know,
are.
She's
It
not
sounds
going
like
to
I have
waste
already.
any breath talking about it.
I will say this, Crispy. Episode 3 alone is reason enough to watch this. As
Yeah,
like, you know,
dude, yeah. I
I know
know.
you've heard that a million
I
times.
know.
I know you've heard. I'm just
I
saying, it
know.
is.
I
It
know
is
the
true.
show's good. I'm not saying the show isn't good. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just, like,
Dude,
Honestly,
I don't know, man.
it feels like I
I
can't
love Pedro
actually give you.
Pascal. I love the story. I love everything, but I love the game, and
That's a
I
good
don't
point.
know. Like,
If someone were to ask me, like, do you think this is a good television show? I don't think I could give an honest answer. I can't remove my experience with the game from this television show. They are forever linked. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that like the show was already so cinematic and they honestly just recreated a lot of these scenes shot for shot, word for word.
But
Not
do you not get
entirely,
any?
but
Do you not get any excitement or enjoyment from that? Because I don't.
no,
Maybe it's
I'm not
just
talking
personal.
about excitement or enjoyment or whatever. I'm talking about evaluating this as like a quality television show. It's hard for me because I can't divorce it from what I've already seen and what I've
Sure,
already experienced. Now, if we were to talk about scenes like the one in like in Indonesia or whatever in episode 2, like that's a great fucking scene, or like the cabin scene in episode like
there's a scene in
4,
six,
Indonesia.
six.
six,
The
like
one
that was a
in
great fucking
winter.
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah, right before winter. Like that was a
yeah,
great scene, and like I got like that was very like energizing to me, and I realized like I will never feel the same about the recreation of stuff from the game as I do about like original scenes. And some of them I really liked, like the ones I mentioned, and some of them I really didn't really care for. But like I can evaluate that stuff. I'm comfortable like
sure.
saying I like this, recommend this. But like when it comes to like okay, well here's the chat at the very end of the game, but instead of you know Joel and Ellie, it's Pedro Pascal. It's I can't I
You're right.
don't
You're
know.
right. And honestly, I can't really divorce it either. For me, it's one of those situations where it's like, now it's like if I like sometimes literally sometimes when it comes to video games that have stories that I just really enjoy, I'm like, God, I love that story, and I want to experience it again, but like I don't want to necessarily like go like devote 20, 30 hours to playing this to experience that story. Now it's kind of like, well, now I have a second option that is almost just as good, and in some cases, honestly, some cases better, not all cases, but and the show allows them to do so many different things. Like they can like with even scenes that are like recreations, like one-to-one recreations of the game, they can tweak little things that change the whole tone of the scene. And one of the biggest examples is actually the finale, the hospital scene, because you're not playing it. Like they were able to the way they framed it, the way they used music was totally different than they did in the game, and it just makes that whole kind of like set piece hit differently, but just as effectively. So
You know, beep, boop, boop. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
I hear what you're saying, Nick, and I agree that adaptations with new creatives working on the material can bring something new to it, right?
right,
And I'm sure that new thing is great. The hospital scene in particular, being a scene that you like play, like that you are Joel and like you are going through, I don't want to get too fucking up my own ass about it, but like there is something about that scene being interactive and being like something where you're like kind of role playing as Joel that just makes it
oh,
work on this
I
level that like I can't imagine a TV show
absolutely,
ever
which is
like
why I
when
don't
you're
think they
going through the
tried.
hospital just like fucking shooting people and it's like I didn't even think twice about it, you know? Like in the moment playing the game, like I didn't even think twice about whether or not this was a good or bad thing because I was invested in these stories and these characters and like whatever page Joel was on in that moment, that's what page I was on, you know?
No, no,
And
you're
like
right. You're right.
experiencing that from a passive point of view I'm not as excited about that, I guess. You know?
And I wasn't, and in fact, I was worried about it. But what I'm saying is the thing in almost every instance on this show, the thing that I was like anticipating, that I was worried about, ended up. Well, no. I'm just saying, like, in almost every instance where I was worried, because I knew they were going to try and recreate something and they were going to flop or they were going to fumble it.
Sure.
They didn't, and it's usually because they tweaked it in some small way to fit the medium that they were obviously in.
Yeah.
And I just think the hospital scene is one case where like they could have very easily.
I mean,
fucked
does it
that up
play?
and-
You watched it with people who didn't play the game. Did it play?
plays. Yeah.
Like, I mean, were people like, "Oh my god!" Like, is there a discussion to be had afterwards? Is there even
Abso-fucking-lutely.
like a talk of like, "Whoa, I was really on Joel's side until he went like
Yeah,
fucking
no,
psycho,"
Dude, the
or like,
divisiveness-
"Whoa, like,
the divisiveness of the ending of the game,
yeah."
that whole debate that came out of that game is happening all over again.
Because it's not even just like that one scene too. Like they go back and they do like a full thesis of what just happened at the end with him and Marlene, where he like kills her in cold blood. You know, like is not even like a question of like whether or not that was a good thing to do. It's like, yeah, that one was murder right there. You know,
Yeah.
like
One thing, and I've said this a lot, and I know not everybody is necessarily into the whole like listening to a podcast after watching a show or whatever, but like listening to the companion podcast that Lucis has been such a great experience. And it just as one little example, like when they did the whole Marlene scene in the hospital in the parking garage, literally shot for shot from the game. But like listening to the podcast afterwards and hearing Craig Mazin, the showrunner who did Chernobyl, talk about his approach to it, and like hearing his insight was really interesting.
I do really want to see that. I do really want to see how
he-
Pedro Pascal does it. Because like in my head, like remembering that scene, and I remember it really clearly. It's like there is this moment where Joel, the like guy that we love, that we're like connected with, this whole like he just glazes over, and it's like this is just like reptilian psychopath here in this moment. Like it is like it's so good. Like he just turns it off. Like
he disassociates himself
Yeah.
for that whole scene, and there's a whole conversation about it. But like specifically with Marlene, that conversation they have on the podcast, I thought was really interesting. I never thought about it this way. Was that like because she says it in the game too? Like after he shoots her the first time. Sorry, spoiler alert for the original for The Last of Us. I'm maybe fast forward like 30 seconds.
2014 game of The Last of Us.
Yes. But after he shoots her for the first time, there's this moment where she says, "You can let me live. You've already got her," or whatever. I forgot what the exact word, but I never thought about it this way. But Craig Mazin was like, "That's the moment she sealed her fate. Like it was over the moment she said that, because when she said that, Joel's thought was, you basically just told me you think there's a chance you're going to survive this, which means you could come back. You could come after me. I was going to walk out of here, but now I'm not."
Of all the people he murdered, why would he not murder her? Hey, question.
Sorry,
because I honestly forget, because I only played that game once when it first came out. Because the conversation that they have when Joel comes to and realizes that Ellie's in surgery,
Right.
is that the same as it was in the game?
It's more or less the same. The only thing that I don't think is
she didn't know that she was going into surgery, and that basically they knew she was going to die.
Oh no!
Did she?
She knew, because
No, that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah, of course she knows.
No, in
That's
the
the whole
game she
point.
knows.
In the show she does too.
I thought in the show they didn't tell her.
No. Oh
Yeah,
are you talking about Ellie?
Ellie.
Oh,
Ellie
Ellie
never
doesn't know.
knows.
Ellie's
game
knocked
and the show.
unconscious if it's
Ellie-
canonically correct.
Ellie is still like, they literally take her from the moment that they find them out in the streets and she's already like unconscious, and they take her straight to surgery.
Okay, so okay, that's what I want a clarification on, because I didn't remember that conversation specifically. It was more or less the same, like in terms of, because I always felt like the way they handled that situation was really stupid, like where they're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna fucking kill her. You just need to get the fuck out of here now. Like,
No, the
why
huge
would they?
huge
but,
part of the conversation is that like they never give
handcuff
Ellie
him and let him go say goodbye or something. Like it's insane, right? Like, what was the rush? I don't even understand.
she knows what kind of person Joel is. Like
I know.
like
So fucking incarcerate him, handcuff him, let him go say goodbye. I don't understand
It
why.
might have
Of
been
course, he
it might
went
have
on a
been nice
fucking
of them not to
rampage. It
kill
was
her, like kill him.
handled so poorly, but he was already like
And
subdued. Like they already had him.
yeah,
It was very strange. And I remember in the game, and I feel like in the show that not that the rampage was worth it, that he needed to kill those people, but like they handled that situation very poorly.
no, I disagree because Marlene is missing
Is
out on
that
a few
fucking
pieces of.
thunder?
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
thunder.
Yeah.
But uh, Marlene is missing out on a few key pieces of information here. One, she doesn't know about Joel's past as far as him having lost a daughter already. Two, she has no idea that he has connected on such a deep level with Ellie at this point. And
I guess that might be true. Yeah.
so she knows that he's a violent person, but she doesn't
She
think
does
of
know
him
that
as like
he
a
spent a
particular.
year alone with her, like
Yeah,
trying
but
to
she,
get her
but she
as
also
a-
knows that up until that point, she knows him as just this like very cold, calculated,
Yeah.
emotionless
Right.
dude. So like,
Post-apocalyptic Joel.
you know, and she has him escorted out of the building by two people carrying, high-powered rifles. So like,
And they were like being dicks or something in the game, right? Like I don't know. I remember like you don't need to make it almost feel slightly justified because of how they're acting towards
Because they
Joel right
were
now.
meanies.
Yeah, they
I
were
don't
being meanies, and that's insane. That's insane.
I don't think they. We're getting into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, we are.
we need to cut to break. So let's do that right now. Like I said, I do. If you enjoyed the game, the show is surprisingly effective, and I do highly recommend it. And it's we're getting season 2, so it's safe to be invested now. Like it's not just going to be a one and done kind of thing. So check it out if you haven't already. So let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about that Resident Evil 4 demo, which is pretty cool, I think. And then Brad's going to tell us a little bit about Bayonetta Origins. So if you're watching us live, don't go anywhere. We'll be back after the short break. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about the Resident Evil 4 demo, which came out. They dropped last week after that Capcom event, right? And this is a little strange because I was actually considering playing this because I was like, the game comes out at the end of the month. It's Resident Evil 4. I know I'm going to play this. But we decided we were going to talk about it tonight on the show, so I decided to go ahead and do it. I don't know how we want to start this conversation. I've only played the demo once. I imagine Chris Davis has played this a bajillion times.
I have
At
5
this
or 6 times at this point.
Well, I want to hear Nick's take.
You want to hear my take?
How long is the demo?
We have kind of heard
It's
Chris
15 minutes,
Davis's
really.
opinions.
Oh.
It took me 23 minutes.
And it's just that like opening village part?
Yes.
It's pretty much the opening, the opening village to the cabin where he meets the first Ganado and then gets chased into the village, and then you survive the village thing, and it ends with the bell tower.
Ooh, that's spooky.
So it's a pretty cool demo. So we've had lots of conversations in the past about, obviously we all have kind of different takes on the Resident Evil franchise, which one's the best, and all this junk.
Which one is the best, Nick?
4.
3.
I'm gonna go with, at this point, probably remake 2.
4 ends with
I was
fucking
kidding, I was
launching over a
You
wave
can't-
runner. Are you kidding me? Like, shut up.
You can't ask that question and then expect people not to answer it. It's not a rhetorical question. But anyways,
Damn,
and
look at that jacket.
I've said some very I've said some things about Resident Evil 4 that I apparently are blasphemous in terms of it not being my favorite, even though I do love this
you're
game.
basically dumb, but that's okay. That's not what we're here to talk about.
Stupid.
But so I played this demo, and let me tell you, I was excited before. I'm super excited now because it manages to kind of and it manages to. I mean, we all kind of saw this coming. It manages to kind of combine the things that I really do love about the newer, like the remakes, like specifically remake 2, with the action. Like it combines like the controls and the atmosphere and like the darker like horror aspect that I really do enjoy about the series, with the action element that is great about Resident Evil 4.
which has been the biggest trepidation people have really had with
It's been
this
my biggest.
project.
It's
Yeah.
been my biggest trepidation. I mean, and here's the thing: I was always gonna play it. I was always gonna love it because I do love Resident Evil 4. It's just it hits different, which is why when I think about my favorite Resident Evil games, it's not the first one that always jumps to mind. But I was really surprised by like kind of how they started. Like they've already, even in this demo, you can tell how they're kind of fleshing things out. They were at once very very small. Like the whole, when you go into the cabin at the beginning where you first meet that Ganado, it's like you walk in the door, you walk around this little like, L-shaped hallway, and there he is. There's a cutscene, boom, and then you run, you jump out a window, and then it's like onto the village, right?
Yeah,
This,
there's
it's
more
like,
to it now.
yeah, this like that cabin has like multiple floors, has a basement, it has doors with locks on it, it has puzzle like, and like there's an objective that's like escape the cabin, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like this thing was like it was like a footnote in that original game,
I
and
mean, it's still
just
like a
this,
relatively minor thing, but
it is,
you're right.
it is.
It is more expanded. My question for you is like, how common do you think that's going to be in this game? Because I mean, the rest of like the village felt
Looks
more or less
pretty,
the same.
but they
So
also didn't
like,
give you a chance to really explore it because the big focus of this demo is that set piece where you're running around the village. There's the guy running around with the chainsaw, and you're
yeah,
trying to
it's
desperately
crazy.
survive. It doesn't give you a
I
chance to really like take a breath and explore.
I think since this is a full
True.
on remake reimagining of Resident Evil 4, that there is going to be a lot of this throughout the game. A lot
Which
of
I think
I
the point of
I want
including
to
this cabin
see.
specifically, they could have started this demo right before you walk into the village itself, but they chose to
absolutely.
include this because I
Yeah.
think they wanted to demonstrate
Yeah.
like the kinds of changes that they're making with this
I should
remake.
say I hope there's a lot more of that because that I want to see those surprises because yeah, the whole like oh it's like more horror-y, like it's darker and more atmospheric. I honestly probably just chalk that up to like it's just better visual fidelity, better lighting. Like it's just more modern. That's why it looks the way it does, not because they're like aiming for something that's
Well,
spookier. I
no,
mean,
I'm gonna tell
honestly,
you.
like this in 2005 or whatever, when Resident Evil 4 came out, like that
Mhm.
looked really like high
No,
fidelity,
it did. It did.
atmospheric, like
Yeah.
it was like crazy. So
But like, I'm just saying, like, I had flashbacks to like walking into the basement in Resident Evil 7 while going down the steps, the stairs in this fucking cabin, and it it's just I mean, a part of it is obviously going to be chalked up to the better visuals and the better lighting and whatnot, but like they are leaning into kind of just like the grittier tone of the remakes as well. But at
I
the
don't
same
know though. Like,
time,
why do
I
you say that though? I mean, there's still gonna be like Salazar. I mean,
yeah, no, of
it,
course.
I don't know. I'm just
I think the tone of this demo, up until you actually get into the village where you have the big set piece thing, I think the tone leading up to that feels totally different in this remake than it did in the original. And a
Yeah.
lot of that could be
my
because of the visuals, could be, but I don't think it's as superficial as that because of things like that cabin where you spend a lot of time. You see these doors, you see that have like you get, like I'm gonna have to explore this whole house, which is giving me a really creepy vibe to find this key. When
yeah.
before it was like I walk down a hallway, I turn a corner, and there's a cutscene.
I
Um,
hope there's much more of that though. I mean,
no,
this is a
I
really
think there
big
will be.
game though, but
I think there will be. Like Resident Evil 2 remake is a significantly bigger game than Resident Evil 2 proper. I think it's going to be.
sort of.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be quite that big of a jump because Resident Evil 4 proper is already like a 12 to 14 hour game. I think this is probably going to end up being closer to like 20. So it's not as big of a jump. But
I
like I'm thinking of all the areas in this game where there is going to be plenty of room to extrapolate out. Like I'm thinking of like that like multi-level building where you first meet Ganado what's his name? Not Ganado. Ganado's what they're Salas. I know what's the name of the big tall dude? I can't remember his fucking with
Chief
the weird eyes.
Salvador.
Yeah, Salvador. Like that building where you first meet Salvador is probably gonna be a much bigger like set piece, and then of course you go to the castle and like designing that castle back in the day, while they managed to pull it off really really well, you know, was limited to some extent by technology. Like I just kind of imagine they're probably going to go kind of hog wild, especially in areas like that. That's going to
You
allow it
think
to. I
you
mean,
think the castle isn't creepy enough, do you?
no,
I don't
I
know
don't.
how much like creepier it's gonna be. Like I just think it's gonna be more like high def or whatever, and the lighting's gonna be better. But I don't know.
I'm just my 2 cents here is that I'm seeing.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Storm got him. The storm got him.
What
Well,
happened?
we're still live.
We're still live. Go ahead. Repeat what you
Lost
said the
I
past
thought I
10
thought
seconds.
storm.
I thought the weather may have gotten you. No, what I was trying to say was actually, what the fuck was I trying to say? God damn it!
What were you trying to say?
You were just talking about how you hope the game is now all the village and that it's really scary and spooky, and they take all the dumb, silly stuff out of the game, like
I
the
love the dumb, silly
castle
stuff. I love the dumb,
and
silly
the
stuff.
science
And
lab.
the island.
Get
Yeah.
rid of the
Island, you said.
Salazar giant robot.
No,
Yeah, and the
that's-
lake monster.
No, dude, never get rid of the lake
Oh,
monster. That
Del
shit-
Lago you got to keep.
We know the
okay.
lake monsters there, right?
Hey, what I'm trying to say is like, and like, I'm seeing like the shift in tone a little bit. Like even that first encounter with the Ganado, they changed it slightly, was super creepy. uh, and
Yeah.
I like looking at the villagers. They all, and again, some of this can be chalked up to just the jump in technology, but like the way they move, the way they carry themselves, the way they like come at you, something about like I do think careful attention has been paid to how can we change these to kind of like match what we've been doing with these remakes, because everything I like this, I was a little too, like, my blood was pumping a little too fast to like really stop and feel like freaked out.
I mean, so here's the thing, like for me. I didn't like necessarily find it like scary or anything, but what I did notice is that like Resident Evil 4 is a game I'm very comfortable with. If
Right.
anything, I think Resident Evil 4 is like a pretty easy game at this point. But like I felt like constantly under threat in this demo.
Oh yeah,
Like
they're very
I
aggressive.
wasn't going around killing everyone. I was desperately trying to survive.
Dude,
And I feel
there
like
were
that
so
is a
more
feeling that I have
villagers.
not had in Resident Evil 4 maybe ever. And of all the things that is exciting to me, it's that like that I feel Resident Evil 4 now feels threatening, which it
Dude,
didn't before.
I ended up in
So
that
that's
second
cool.
floor of that the building where you first try to barricade the door. I ended up on the second floor, and I was like, I backed myself into a corner, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. And at some point, and then I went to try and jump out the window, and there was like 4 dudes outside the window, and I turned, and there was like 6 dudes coming up the stairs, and then I look over at the other window, and there's like a dude climbing through that window. I was like, this is getting out of control. Like,
Yeah,
there are
so
way
With
more
that
enemies
said, though,
in this
it
village.
didn't feel like good to me though. It still felt like a kind of like it still felt kind of clunky. Like I felt like I couldn't get around these guys, and I see like videos of like all this crazy tech. You can dodge throws by like ducking, but it also like feels like shit to duck. So like I'm not going to be doing that. It's very
I disagree
slow
with
and
you there.
sluggish. It's very slow and sluggish, so it's not like it might look good in a GIF, but it's not something I'm going to be using
I mean,
because
I'm going to
that's
be honest.
insane.
I think that thing that you just finished saying that you were excited about, that feeling constantly under threat, is because they kind of tweaked the game feel, and because he is a little bit more cumbersome to control. That is
Well, with
a
the
huge.
exception of like Super Parry, right? And it's clear that like this might as well be called Resident Evil 4 Knife Edition because they're so like focused on this knife and the knife parry and the knife durability and upgrading your knife, and it's sort of like this weird in between of like it almost feels more like a more modern Resident Evil, which I feel is a little bit slower, a little more clunky, but also like a Resident Evil 6 style mechanic. Like the knife parry feels like some crazy mechanic out of Resident Evil 6.
What the fuck
And
just happened in that demo? I'm sorry, I didn't see that
it
happen, Chris Dave.
Yeah,
it
no,
almost feels like it's something that it's like the parry and Wolong or something. Like if you're gonna engage with Resident Evil 4 on any deep level, you got to figure out this knife parry thing because
I mean,
I
I'm gonna be
mean,
honest. I only played the demo once, and I don't even think I used the knife.
but that's
Maybe
like
I'm
the
wrong.
big thing, right? That's why they're so focused on even like the knife in
I mean,
I don't know,
you
it's
don't
weird.
need to use the knife to parry anything. It's an optional mechanic you can use. Like my first several
It's like
playthroughs of
the
it,
big
I
new
never
mechanic
parried anything.
because you probably didn't know how to do it. The game doesn't really even tell you. But it's clear that the developer sees this as a big thing. Even even in the way like that the knife is sort of presented in the demo, it's like a thing, right? But
Sure.
I don't know, the fact that like even like stealth kills are tied to like the durability of the knife, it makes me resistant to it. I think if you do like a perfect parry, it doesn't reduce the durability, or it does it very slightly, but like a regular parry like does reduce the durability more than a perfect parry, and it just feels like they went all in on this one mechanic, kind of like what like TDM was saying in Discord, like ever since they first showed off the game, the knife changes everything. He's probably right, and I'm
But
wondering like if there's anything else in this game that's like developed as that.
I mean, quite honestly, this is probably one of the reasons why I kind of didn't want to play this demo originally, because playing, I mean, one, I've already played this game and I already know it's going to be pretty special, and I didn't really feel the need to play it. But on the other hand, like, it's really easy to like latch on. Like, you only have so much time to show new mechanics and improvements in a demo like this, and it's easy to kind of get like tunnel vision and like focus on one and be like, well, is that really their big thing? And it's like, this game probably
Even the
has so
developer
much up
said
its
like
sleeve.
even the developer suggests like, or he said something along the lines of like the knife is definitely the first upgrade I do or I'd recommend or some shit like that. It's
Is that
it's a big
inherently a
thing.
bad thing though? Like they did like
No, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird because like straight up like movement and gunplay did feel kind of sluggish to me, and that's not the feeling I got from playing Resident Evil 4. Like, and maybe it's just because I played it so much, but like I definitely felt Resident Evil 4 was kind of snappy and responsive, and like I don't know what Chris Davis is doing with the duck, but to me it definitely didn't feel like something like an effective tool, if you will. It just seemed like something that someone did in a GIF.
yeah,
So I
I
don't know.
think we're gonna need to spend a lot more time. Oh my god, you just lit that cow on fire.
Oh, wait
Sorry.
for it. Oh, you're gonna see the best thing in just a
Just
second.
oh my god, is the whole house burning down? Sorry, this is crazy.
Oh,
You're
what's
doing
even
things
worse
I
is the chainsaw dude that's on fire coming after you.
damn. This game's crazy. This
Like
game's
this
crazy.
was a really good run. I was able to show off a lot of things that are in this demo.
Oh, this guy. He's soon he legend this shit. You was he ducking anything? I haven't been watching the
Yes.
footage. Was he ducking throws or whatever? Are you like styling on these fools? I mean, are you trying to
I
like
style a little
are you
bit,
trying
but
to gif us,
I'm
with this
really just
footage?
trying to run out the clock and show off like what you could explore inside the village. Because
Um
there is quite a bit to find here.
I do think it's important to point out that this is obviously a remake,
what do you mean? Like
and
what?
What?
well,
That I'm
Like what can you find in the village?
well, he did do something a minute ago that you weren't watching. Like he climbed up the clock tower, and they like somehow destroyed the floor underneath him, and he fell
yeah.
back down to the bottom. Like shit like that wasn't in the original, and that was
That's
pretty
cool.
wild.
I want to see
Yeah.
more surprises like that for
Also,
There,
sure.
there's
I think I saw like a well
there's a
somewhere in the village that
well.
has like a
Yeah,
gate
that's like a
that you can
secret
unlock.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
In the demo, because there's actually quite a few secrets that are in the demo. If you at the very beginning of a run of the demo, if you unequip everything that you have and you make it to the village, you can go. The well is unlocked, and you can go down in there, and the TMP is out there with some extra ammo and some health items.
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Capcom's been
Yeah.
doing this with all these Resident Evil demos ever since
Yeah.
7. I feel like they've been doing like demos with all kinds of secrets, which is a cool thing for sure. It gets people talking.
You
Yeah.
know,
But I don't. Is this more of a like a demo thing, or is this indicative of the kinds of
I think that well will serve another
surprises we should
purpose.
expect from the main game? I don't know. It's hard to
Well,
tell.
that's the point of any demo. I feel like. I mean, it's hard.
No,
This is
I'm
again,
saying
it's
they've
hard
been
to tell.
specifically doing unique things with their demos.
I see
Only.
what you're saying.
Yeah, but a lot of their unique things have tended to be like, oh, you can only play this demo for an hour, or you
No,
got to
no,
go
I'm
to this
talking
very
about
particular circumstance to
ever
get
since
like
like
Nemesis
7,
howling
they've
at you
had
out in the back, things like that.
ever since 7, they've been like locking hidden shit in these demos for people to kind of like find and go viral, right?
Yeah,
Like the locked drawers and the finger or whatever. Remember the finger?
Oh yeah, I forgot
yeah.
about the finger.
Um,
For,
Um, here's the thing. Like, this is a remake, and you especially when you remake a game like this, the last thing you wanted to do is feel too similar. I mean, then you end up in a situation like The Last of Us Part One, and people starting that whole conversation again. That was this necessary? So, they're remaking one of the most beloved games of all time, and they've been doing all these Resident Evil remakes up until this point. I do think it was important for them to, one, try to make Resident Evil 4 feel fresh again, and part of the one of the ways you can do that is by kind of blending the best of both worlds. And I think that's kind of what they've done here, because this feels right in line with like Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake to an extent. And but at the same time, it still feels like the Resident Evil 4 that I'm familiar with. And I was gonna. This is one of those games where I was like, I'm gonna be really excited about this like the day before it comes out, and then I'm gonna get super hyped. I haven't really been thinking much about this remake, to be honest. Which is weird considering I was like over the moon about Resident Evil 2 remake, and I was counting the days for like months on end. But now this demo has kind of put it back on the map for me. I'm like super excited to play this now.
yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It's one of my favorite games ever.
Like
But
I love that. Like in the demo, like this is the part where he goes into the cabin, and
Yeah.
in the original game, the Ganado guy is like already, he's just kind of like with his back to you by the fire, and in this you like walk in the door, and then the door closes, and the dude is like to your right, standing behind the door, and then he just kind of like turns and walks away from you, and I was like, that was like super creepy.
yeah.
And then he attacks you, and you go down into the basement, and then after like some shit happens, all of a sudden you can hear him like get back up, and he's like walking around upstairs above you, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, they just made that like super simple short interaction from the original game just bigger. And
Yeah, or like the ending condition for the village fight. How
Mhm.
if you played the original, which surely everyone at this point has, everyone in the fucking world has, even though people haven't been born yet. Um, that demo, that original village experience, it ends like a flash to a cutscene, and just the action stops. But the way it ends in the demo was going to end in the final game of the remake is that the
the
clock tower
goes
starts
off.
ringing,
Yeah.
and it's all end game, and all the zombies just like slowly turn and look at the tower, and you get control for like another 15-20 seconds to watch everything just come to a halt, and you're just kind of experiencing it with them.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That was a really cool little detail where they didn't instantly take control away from you and just do all of that entirely in cutscene. It was like it just kind of happens organically.
Yeah.
I was almost kind of expecting like there not even to be a cutscene, it just to like all happen in game, and I was like, this is kind of crazy.
If it was a more system driven experience, I think that'd be really cool. But I don't think you want to do a curated experience like that with
Nah, Resident Evil has never really been that, anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
There was one take on social media that I appreciated, and it was that
Mhm.
it was basically saying all the people who are getting like super excited about all these like crazy knife mechanics are probably just, I mean, you just want Resident Evil 6. They did this once before, and it was called Resident Evil 6.
And it was a terrible
So
game.
maybe-
I have a question, because I feel like Resident Evil 4 is kind of like, with the exception of Code Veronica, is kind of like the last game in the series that like feels kind of like it could benefit from. Do you think they're going to remake 5 and 6?
Okay, this
I-
one felt like it didn't need a
No.
remake,
No,
You're right. I mean, but like it
and
just
now
I feel
everyone's
like.
in love.
But I mean, but here's the thing, like it's a beloved game, and they've been doing some great stuff with remakes, and it's like, and it's one of those things where it's like it's already an amazing game, but putting it, like, people would get excited putting an extra coat of polish on it and making it look super modern, like
And-
that alone, I think would be enough a lot of people to get excited about, but like it almost seems silly remaking games beyond this, right?
I
You
don't
could say
think.
this one seems silly.
I mean,
You're missing my point. You're just dodging my point by both times that I've said it. But okay.
5 and
I think
6.
why not 5?
I don't think 5 and 6. Number one,
Not
some of the evidence to
symphonies.
that point is that most recently, like just a few days ago, Capcom had 5 and 6 updated on Steam to remove their games with Windows functionality, which was a pseudo DRM. So they removed that. They're actively updating a 15-year-old game at this point. So
They've been constantly like porting and re-releasing in those games like constantly nonstop. I mean, that's
yeah,
not unusual for
but
Capcom.
my feeling is that 5 is of such a state, and it's still playable in co-op fully
Of course, still
online,
playable.
that the most they would ever do is kind of a pseudo HD remaster in which they just clean up the textures, give it maybe
Okay.
a little bit of extra polish, and just push it out again. I don't think that, and 6 they'll just leave alone because it's so critically lambasted that there's nothing they could do that would make it
5 sold
purchasable
extremely
again.
well, more than 4 though. That's the thing.
Yes, it did. It absolutely did.
But here's the thing. I feel like more so than even Resident Evil 4, it would seem really strange for me for them to take 5 and make it kind of control like shit. Or like make it control more like a modern Resident Evil game, right? Like 5 felt like a very well-tuned like action version of 4. Like it felt
Yes.
really good to play 5. It was nice to play this village scene like and really felt threatened. I don't feel like that works in 5 the same way.
It doesn't, because 5 is not a horror game or survival horror. It is an action experience. It's a co-op action experience. Like the most I think they could move in that direction is if they took that original approach they had with 5. I don't know if y'all remember the original trailer for 5, but there was like
I do.
there was about 10 seconds of gameplay footage in that trailer. And the most prominent scene of that trailer is Chris at the bottom of a hill and an entire village of people, like well over like a dozen enemies, slowly advancing on Chris. And that felt like an escalation compared to 4, because 4, at most you were fighting maybe 4, 5 enemies maximum in an encounter.
Right.
So
Which they've obviously changed in this remake.
So yeah, no, that was one of the things I was gonna praise about this demo and this remake is that you felt so much more pressure because it was constantly spawning enemies at you.
Dude, I think that
Um,
castle is going to be completely overwhelming, but like in a good way.
Well, I think they're
Maybe.
gonna have to do some trimming on the castle, but for the better. But that's a whole other conversation.
No.
But yeah, back to 5.
Are you
I don't.
saying you're not going to atmospherically run from a giant statue robot?
Here's the thing.
How could they remove that?
So here's the thing: is
But
that
not including it.
How
The
could
little
one of the
Tomb Raider puzzle you do by moving his
like
his
the best
hand?
part of that fucking game?
the primary developer behind 4 before it switched back to the original RE2 remake developers was M2, and one of the reasons it was taken off of their hands, not just for how 3 was received, but was in interviews this is quoted that they were being too faithful to the source material because of how people were reacting to the 3 remake. So that seems to me like, sure, they will have a lot of the same level geometry and the settings present and basically the same story, but they're probably not going to go with the more outlandishly city stuff like the Salazar moving statue thing.
Dude, I'm almost positive. I read in an interview
you
that
really
thing is
think they're
absolutely
not-
still in there.
You really
I'm-
think they're just not gonna have that? in the
If
remake?
it's in
That's
there, it's
insane.
going to be something completely different.
Dude, no way. No way. Whatever.
I could be crazy, but I'm almost positive. I read in an interview somewhere that statue thing is totally in the game.
This is
but-
revisionism.
All right, we're getting into the weeds here. Resident Evil 4 demo, pretty cool.
I do want to
And
mention one thing real quick is that
Mhm.
the the system to play this game on is on PC because it is optimized very well, just like the RE2 and RE3 remakes were. So even low-end systems can run it really well. I'm playing this footage 1440p. I'm getting well over 60 frames per second on my 6-year-old computer. But the cool thing is that the modding scene has already embraced this game. There's already a ton of reskins and new models and stuff like that. There's a lot of cool stuff. But one of the cool things that I experienced this afternoon is that there's a mod called Village Expanded. And basically, it unlocks the extra part of the village portion of the map that are cut off by walls and gates. So there's a section where you can go beyond into a cave with like a shack that obviously leads to the lake. And there's also the other path
Is there
that you
anything?
logically
Is there
go
stuff
to.
to do in there at this point, or is it just cool that you can get to it?
You can get to it. It's most of what the stuff that's supposed to be interactable in there is the models are there, but the interaction is turned off.
Right. So like, why would anybody want to go in there if the interaction is turned off?
Because
Oh,
you
man.
just want to see
Things
what's
like that
there.
seems really silly
You
to
just
me.
don't understand, Nicholas.
Well, what I'm saying is that you can go to the next area that you experienced in the original game, which is the farm, and you can get a preview of what to expect there. Because I went and did that, and you can see the barn and the well and the windmill, and you can see the blue medallions that you can actually shoot, like in the original game.
That it's cool. One, it's cool that people can do that. Two, if this demo was like for a game that was coming out in 6 months, I'd be like, that's pretty cool, I guess. This game comes out in like a week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say that you can go in and you can actively in this demo confirm that that level of faithfulness it also extends beyond just the village portion.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's I think that's a given. But anyways, we need to move on.
Did you notice in the demo that there was also prompts throughout the village for you to do co-op actions?
I did not know. Like I said, I only played the demo once, so
There's
I did not
a
notice these
building towards the left in the demo that if you go against the wall, there is a prompt.
things. Oh no,
to...
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw
Okay.
that. So I'm not really sure what that's for, but
I'm just saying that I think of that, and that immediately makes me think that there's going to be like the village in Resident Evil 8, where you can come back and you can unlock extra stuff just because
That
you
would
have
be
Ashley
cool.
with you too.
That would be cool. I would love to be able to see you be able to like double back and like revisit areas for like actual purpose. That would be nice. All right, Brad, I want to pass it over to you because you've been playing a game that Crispy picked up on his Fantasy Critic roster.
No one gives a shit that Crispy picked that up. We're here to
I do.
talk about a new Bayonetta game.
Bayonetta Origins, Cereza,
Yeah.
and the Lost Demon.
This is one that I was very like, why does this exist? Because
I remember.
it seems very slow and story driven, which
think-
it is at first. So the demo is a progress carryover demo, so it's like the first 10% of the game, I think, is what the progress said when I saved or whatever at the end.
10%.
And this is 10%, yeah.
How long is this demo?
I don't know, maybe like an hour and a half. Hour.
Oh wow.
That's substantial.
Yeah, but it's very slow because there's a lot of setup and story. But like
Okay.
the presentation of that stuff and like like the voice acting and stuff like that stuff's pretty good. I was worried about this game because I thought it was going to be a very story driven game, and they typically do not handle story well in this series, especially after that third game. But since this is a simpler story, you play as young Bayonetta, or Cereza is her name, and it's very like storybook style, and the presentation and the visuals, like all that really works. And because it's not trying to tell some really stupid like multiverse, whatever the fuck Bayonetta 3 was doing, or any of the Bayonettas, I think it works like as just like Henry was really into watching this and he started playing it. He was like really kind of excited about it because, that presentation is surprisingly good
It looks pretty
and
nice.
it kind of carries it. And like the visual style, it's hard to kind of maybe tell through this footage, but like there's details to, like the world and even the characters like Bayonetta, Cereza, and her like mentor or whatever, like all that looks really like it's got a really neat visual style and and the presentation, the visuals, like it's all like surprisingly good. um and like the gameplay, I mean, I don't know how much y'all know about this game, but like control wise, this plays a lot like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, where you're controlling Cereza with like the left half of the controller and the right half of the controller, right analog stick and the right triggers and stuff. Control Cheshire, which is her stuffed cat, which turns into a demon or gets possessed by a demon. So you're
Hmm.
controlling like both characters at once, both in combat and also like puzzles and platforming and stuff. Very much like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, but I guess ultimately it's going to be a little bit more developed in terms of that
Well,
because
I think a Brothers of
that
Tale
game
of Two
was just
Sons
like a
was like
few
two
hours
hours
long.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be like 15 or whatever, 10, 15 hours. So, like it's a more substantial game, I guess. And it like so Cereza, she can't like attack anything, but she has the access, at least early on, to like this kind of like this magical field that where she can kind of like stun enemies or trigger things in the world, and you play like this little like kind of like a rhythm stick flicking mini game, but it weirdly takes a little too long. And I don't know, like it's a little strange, but like I see what they're going for, where you're controlling both in puzzles and combat, and the big demon Cheshire is kind of attacking everything. So you're trying to kind of like stun things with Cereza and attack things with the other one, but you're doing it all on the same controller.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of like an interesting, set of mechanics. Just like with, you know, Brothers, right? Your brain kind of breaks, but like sort of like unraveling that is sort of what makes it fun. Um, but again, it was hard to get a sense of like how far this goes, although reviews say like it goes like some pretty cool places. But because the demo was so front loaded with story and stuff, but it seems neat. Like I was really kind of down on this game and not very interested, but after playing the demo, I'm like, this is nice. This is unexpected. I don't think they should maybe be selling this for a full price, which is crazy. I think this thing's going to bomb horribly. But it is sort of a neat little side project. It's nice to see them doing something in this universe that's very different from just another Bayonetta game.
You
Like
say full price.
that's
This is $60.
yes. Yeah, yeah. It's the sole reason I didn't bid on this, actually. I was worried that people were going to be like, this is kind of neat, but like, I don't think this is $60 neat. Or I don't think I was worried that it was going to be kind of like one gimmick that they stretch out a little too much. But apparently,
Yeah.
there's enough variety there. I mean, people like the game, more or less. It's reviewing pretty well.
I like the menu, like just kind of like going.
No,
I see you like
again,
everything
like
looks slick.
slick in a way that like Bayonetta 3 was not slick. Bayonetta 3 was cool and it had like some sick mechanics and ideas, but like that game looked messy, it felt messy, and the story was like insane, which is why like bad. It was bad. Um that's why I had low expectations for this, but like I don't know who it was. Just I mean, it seems like Platinum Games has like a million teams sometimes. um, or I don't know if this was like co-developed with another developer. I actually really don't know much about the development of this game, but this feels like completely different. Like I think not have, you could not care about Bayonetta at all, but just want something that is a cool like visual, you know,
Yeah.
just
I
just a
might.
neat little game. Like this feels like a really nice indie game. Like
Yeah.
like an indie game that people were talking about at the end of the year that they sold for $30. And hey, but it was
This
cool.
strikes me as
The-
a game I'm going to play the demo for, and then wait and see if it goes on sale at some point this year to
yeah,
try and
that's
squeeze it in.
crazy. This No one's gonna buy this fucking game. It's crazy. This thing comes out like next week or this week. This thing's out this
Tomorrow,
week.
I think. I think
There's
it's out
just so
tomorrow.
much out right now and so much coming out. Like I think this thing has no chance, and it makes me sad because it's neat. They just should not have sold it for $60.
Real quick, on kind of a semi-related note, and maybe this is a dumb question, but Crispy,
Mm.
you kind of explained your strategy, Fantasy Critic, last week. Is this another example of one of those, or did you have a reason
Mhm.
specifically for why you bid on this?
Well,
Oh, the
my
trade? No, he couldn't have traded a game that
strategy
came out so soon.
has been to pick games that I think will score well
That's everybody's strategy. Yeah.
and
Good strategy.
would generate a lot of points so that my point total goes up and in fact
That's
goes
funny.
higher
That's
than
following
everyone
the
else's
strategy
point
except for
total.
My question for you, Crispy, is like nobody, especially nobody on
Did
this
I pick
show,
this
I
up
think,
because I thought I was gonna use it as trade collateral
because
against?
nobody on this show was
I didn't. I
particularly
didn't.
interested in it
I
prior to
saw
like the demo.
I saw early impressions. People were like, "Whoa, this is kind of cool." The stars seemed right. You know, it's a
Okay.
beloved character, a beloved franchise. People were kind of like, "Whoa, this is something new from Bayonetta and from Platinum Games, and
But I
it
don't
has a
think
cool
people were
look."
down on this though. I don't think anyone was very hyped about this.
Maybe not the minute they announced it, but after it sat for a little bit and there was like demos going around,
The preview coverage was positive.
people were saying like, "This seems kind of cool." Actually, when I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, "Fuck it."
I don't think it was a bad bid. I almost bid on it, honestly. It was literally only the price that scared me away. I thought it would seep into reviews a little bit, which you
Yeah.
don't
It looks
typically
like
see
it
that,
kind of
but like
did. It was at an 84, now it's down to
it
like
has dropped.
79.
Yeah. But you know, it's good for this weird little project. But you're right. You're right. I feel like if this was a $30 game, it would be getting closer to like Hi-Fi Rush, right? Like I feel like Hi-Fi Rush being a $30 game is
helped it a lot.
helped it a lot. And the fact that it was on Game Pass. And yet another reason that probably Microsoft completely disrespected this project and just lucked out into, hey, our brilliant strategy worked. But they were clearly undervaluing the game by one, not marketing at all, and two, releasing an awesome game for $30. But hey, they're brilliant.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so yeah,
Hey,
I don't know.
real quick,
This could have
did
been
we
that.
lose?
This could have
Did
been
the
that.
stream go down?
If this was shadow dropped in $30, people would be shouting from the rooftops, I think. But
Streams
yeah.
still live. We're good. Yeah.
Oh,
It is what it
says
is.
there's a.
It's cool. It's neat. Like
Oh.
this is a good rental. This is a good pickup when it's on sale. But like
I'm gonna play this demo.
this is
It looks pretty
better,
cool.
certainly better than I thought it was going to be. Just know that if you play the demo, it's the very start of the game and it starts slow.
Low.
But from what I understand, this is like a much more interconnected. Like people are saying, it's like a Metroidvania / Zelda type game.
This could be. It sounds like this could be a Jimmy.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. But most Jimmies are not $60. But
That's
sometimes
true.
they are. Sometimes they are.
Sometimes there. All right.
It's neat. It's neat.
That's good. That's better than I was expecting. So that's good to hear. All right, let's wrap it up, guys, with the 4-player minute. Brad, are you ready to kick it off?
Yeah.
You always go
Alright.
first.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Take it away.
My 4-player minute is about one, fuck Lubu. But two, fuck Lubu. It's so
Still going
great
with-
to hear like the most famous of like the three kingdoms, like characters, the infamous Lubu or whatever, is just like the what's his name, Genichiro from Sekiro. He is like that boss, but of Wolong. He's an asshole.
Mhm.
And who
But
I'm
he's also
fighting
like
right
the
now.
second boss of the game, right?
No. He's not the second boss. Not even close.
Oh.
He's been playing it for a while now, and he just got there.
No. The first boss is really hard, and then this is probably the second like big wall, but it comes much later in the game. Closer to like whatever. He's an asshole, but that's not my 4-player minute. My 4-player minute is Ghostwire Tokyo. It's finally coming to Game Pass in April after I guess more has it been a year or 2 years? A year. A year. More or less. Yeah. Finally coming to Game Pass, but it's also coming out with a big update. I forget the name of it. I'm sure Chris Davis can find the name of the update. Some DLC free update for all versions of the game. and they've done a little work to it, which is exciting. Because like Ghostwire Tokyo is the game I've played a little bit of, but I mostly just sort of struggled with like, oh, is this worth playing? Is this worth playing? And everybody's saying, no, stupid, don't play it. Especially Nick, who like traded in immediately. Um, and
I
because
didn't
he
like
hates
it.
it.
I
He
don't know what
hates
to
it. He
tell
doesn't
you.
do that with he doesn't do that with mini games, but he hates this one. Do you still own Biomutant?
No.
Wow. Wow. Oh, okay. Thank God.
Wow.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Some people in the community really like it, but even those people told me not to play it, which is so weird. But whatever. I was hoping
They're just gatekeeping you, Brad. They're just trying to keep you out of their play
no,
space.
I just think they're saying, yeah, we kind of liked it, but I guess it is sort of mid. That's kind of the consensus I heard.
They're afraid of recommending something to you that you're going to bash.
No, I mean that's everything. Everyone's afraid of me hating on things that they love, but like
I'm
that
not
wasn't even
afraid.
the
I love
vibe.
it.
That wasn't even the vibe I got with Ghostwire Tokyo. It was more like it's probably not worth your time. Um,
Definition of
and
mid.
like it had some like pretty significant flaws, but this update they're just introducing a dodge, which might seem like a minor thing, but that's like a significant game mechanic, and
It
it's
is.
one of the things that like people were really frustrated about this game with. And it's got me thinking like, man, now's probably a pretty good time to finally play Ghostwire Tokyo, especially riding high off of Hi-Fi Rush. Like that's cool. What is a dodge gonna do? Maybe I should play this on hard now. There's a fucking dodge, and I'm wondering if did they work on the controls, because the main thing with that game is like it felt like shit, like aiming and shooting and like just moving around, like it
Sense of
didn't feel
physicality in general did not feel great.
it didn't feel good. Like as much as people think that my opinions on game feel are like completely stupid, because when I talk about Resident Evil they're like, whoa, what are you talking about, what are you talking about? uh but
I mean, that
yeah,
is accurate.
I thought
Pretty
Ghostwire
accurate.
Tokyo felt like shit, and I'm curious, like, what does a dodge do? What did they actually figure out how to control a first person shooter in with this update? Who knows? But yeah, that's it. I'm excited. I'm probably gonna try it now after this update. And yeah,
That's
that's
why
cool.
updates are cool.
What's it called? What's the update called, Chris Davis?
It's called the Spider's Thread.
The spider.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a big
Ooh,
spider in the
spooky.
trailer. There's a trailer for it. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
They're
cool.
adding it's not just
dodge.
the dodge mechanic. They're also adding a new main mission on a set in a middle school. Some side missions, and some
There's new
balance
skills and shit.
stuff. Yeah.
There's new like skills and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they finally will add like the depth that the game needs. Hopefully, it's like accessible early in the game, not just the DLC. You know.
I'm just gonna say this because all that sounds really great, except
You hate
it doesn't sound like they're addressing the game's biggest issue, which was that just like it seemed, and this is coming from someone who loves open world games. I don't think it justified its open world at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Did
that's a fair
Max or
Wow.
fucking
Didn't have enough Ubisoft towers.
Yeah.
Well, no, it
No, it
overuses
did.
this stuff. Because there's
I mean,
the whole mechanic of the entire population of the district being turned into souls that are going to be fueling the big bad's means to an end. You got to go explore all over the map to find this stuff, and it's a very minor rewards for what you get. And it doesn't feel as rewarding as it probably really could have been.
if that world
I heard
was
it's like a pretty
open but
fun
much
game
smaller,
if you crit path it though. I heard if you crit path it, like just stick to like the
sure.
main story
Yeah.
stuff, that it's like a fun
I'm literally incapable of crit pathing open games. I can't do it.
Nick can't.
even if you hate the
You
open
gotta-
world.
You
Yeah,
got a sickness,
if it's a-
Nicholas.
If it's an open world, if I don't like the open world, I'm just putting it down. I can't
You
because
dangle a
I
shiny
cannot-
object in an open world in front of Nick, and he just goes off path.
Correct. I cannot turn that part of my brain off. So open world games for me live or die by the quality of their open world. And Ghostwire Tokyo failed. If that open world had been
You say that, but you
smaller,
love stuff like Mad Max and
I
and
love
other
Mad Max because dude, Mad Max was great because you had that amazing driving combat. Like that
Sure,
justified.
but you just said the quality of the open world.
It did because I loved driving around that open world, engaging in car combat, just out in the world. I loved fucking doing it. Like the fact that I could drive anywhere and and engage enemies anywhere with that combat system, and having these dynamic storms roll in out in an open world was amazing to me.
That's
There's
kind of an
nothing
inverse
like that.
situation, though, because that's what was strong about that game. The story was not.
I mean, but the story was. Whatever. But it wasn't like terrible. It was just not anything special. But like
People
that's
like
not.
the story
in Ghostwire
was
Tokyo. I
go
hear
to
it wraps up well.
Gasoline Town.
Maybe I just
and
could not
compete in a
get.
race.
I mean, all I'm saying is I spent like 70 hours playing Mad Max. I couldn't spend more than like 10 hours playing Ghostwire
Damn.
Tokyo, and
Yeah, they're very different games, I think.
they, right. But you keep bringing it up, so like what do you want me to say?
No, I'm saying, would you consider giving it a chance and just sort of like sticking to the main story?
If you I mean, you
Why-
heard what I just
why?
said.
Just
I can't do
Are
it.
we in 4-player minute? What is going on?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Brad cannot handle 4-player minutes that are a minute long.
What do you? Everyone's engaged in this conversation, and you are blaming me.
No,
No,
I don't know
literally-
what the conversation is anymore. Are we trying to convince Nick to play
Ghostwire
Ghostwire Tokyo? I don't even want to play Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't know why I care if Nick plays it.
No, I want him to admit he hates it.
Yeah, Nick, just say you hate it.
Sure,
It doesn't
I
matter
hate
if it's
it.
true.
I feel like me constantly trying to talk him out of playing it, and then talking about how I traded it in after 10 hours was close enough to me saying I hate it. I don't know why he has to hear the words.
I want you to
for
say
saying
it.
that.
I want you to
We can
calcify that hate in your soul,
calcify it.
Nicholas.
Yeah, I like it when you hate things. That's all.
Yeah.
You
Still
say
human.
We like negative Nicholas.
I love how he just said it makes me feel human. Like I'm not otherwise human.
I don't like that
That's not what
statement
that
at all.
No,
What
that's
the
not what
fuck?
that means. No, that's a false. You just did a fallacy.
He meant relatable.
I am capable of hating things, Brad. And one of those things that I hate
know.
is open worlds that don't justify their
Me
existence.
saying I like a good human moment from you doesn't mean you're incapable of them or you never have them. I'm just saying I like this one.
All right. I hate Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yes.
You know, sometimes I'm in my closet and I'm going through my closet and I find that shirt that I got at E3 that says Ghostwire Tokyo
Oh,
after they announced it.
And you throw it back in the closet.
I think to myself, maybe I should take this to Goodwill this week.
You caused this. You
Damn.
made that game be middling
See?
by buying
Nick
that
does
shirt.
not like Japanese games.
Well, I didn't want to go there, but you know.
But you were thinking it. We all
I
know
just
you were
missed
thinking
Before
it.
you say I don't want to
in
go there, you said
Tokyo.
that's true, Brad.
All right, we
What?
need to move on.
He wants
Chris
Ghostwire
Davis.
Texas.
Oh, fuck.
Ghostwire, Texas.
Damn it.
Oh,
Made by a good American. Good Americans like Rockstar.
You know, I don't want to indulge this ridiculous meme that we have going here, but I do find it really funny that like I finally like kind of like fell in love with a quote unquote JRPG, and it's a fucking Western made JRPG.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's perfect. Perfect.
yeah.
Not intentional.
Why is Nick so nationalistic? I don't get it.
Yeah.
God damn
Yoshi
it.
P is rolling over in his grave.
No, he's alive. Don't even joke.
All right, Chris Davis, please save us.
I don't know if I can at this point. I think I can only just drag us further down into the hole.
Show us how it's done.
Okay. I've got the perfect thing to drag us into the hole. Did you know that the next Persona game was announced during the podcast?
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
Is it an
Persona
actual
5
announcement,
The
or is it-
Phantom X
Oh,
is
that's not the
a
next Persona
free-to-play gotcha game that's coming to iOS and Android this year, being developed by
You're
Perfect
spending
World
your
Entertainment.
minute on this.
It's using the same art style. Instead of a cat, you get an owl, and the owl transforms into a Gundam.
What? Crispy's on board.
Yeah, it's
So what
I just wanna
what
see
is
that.
your I don't
That isn't-
understand the point.
that wasn't even going to be a part of my 4-player minute. You wanted me to drag us down further into the hole. I thought this
Here
would be
we
a perfect
are.
thing.
There's lots of mobile games.
Can't even see daylight anymore.
Yeah, we're doomed. I guess my thing I'm looking forward to this weekend. I'm playing the other game that we're going to be doing a bonus podcast on.
He's talking about
sometime in April.
Hogwarts.
But
Ah.
we'll talk about that in April. Um, the thing I'm
Mm.
looking forward to playing this weekend is the Exoprimal demo.
Please
There's
please tell me you stole that, Chris.
Chris,
I'm sorry.
Chris,
Okay. Exoprimal. What's up with Exoprimal? What's that?
would it make you feel better, Crispy, if I told you
No.
I didn't give? Okay, whatever.
Chris
All right.
Davis, stop taking the bait.
Yeah, I know.
Go.
I know. The Exoprimal beta launched an hour before we started the recording. And I was on a call
He's been
with my
secretly
friends.
playing it.
I was on a call with my friends as they were playing the demo. And they were really enjoying it, which is a very exciting thing because I have not been able to play with that group on a particular game in quite a long time.
You mean the Division? You're talking about the Division.
No, I'm talking about Exoprimal.
No, I thought you said that you haven't been able to play with them on a game in a very long time. Are you talking about the Division?
It's his old
No.
Spies versus Mercs crew.
I mean, kind of, yeah. One of the guys in there is, I mean, that entire crew is people I've known since elementary school. But
I was just pointing out. I thought maybe you were alluding to the fact that you haven't been able to play the Division with them in a long time. Anyway, sorry.
We don't
digress.
really play multiplayer games much anymore because we're adults with time and a severe lack of that. But yeah, they were playing it, and I was listening to them while they were playing it, and one of them described it the best way possible for me, and he said that this is Mass Effect 3 multiplayer with mechs, and I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need to say.
There were no dinosaurs in that equation.
Yeah,
I
what
don't
are you
understand.
talking about?
Dinosaurs are the bonus, okay? But they described it as Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, and I have an infatuation with that multiplayer mode that should be shared with everyone.
The thing is, here's what I've heard about Exoprimal is that people are kind of into like the horde mode. Hey, we're all fighting dinosaurs together, but the matches end. It's PvE/VP, where like the last round of your matches, you have to like fight other human players, and it sounds like no one wants to do that. But you just have to do that at the end of the match, and it's not fun, and it's kind of janky, and people were just wishing they were shooting dinosaurs. But no, you got to have a PvP match at the end of these Exoprimal rounds or whatever. And it's like, I'm hoping that there's some modes where you don't have to fight human people, because let me
I
tell you,
refuse to
Capcom
believe.
is not good at making shooters where you fight each other.
I refuse to believe that Carlos's Hail Mary is going to pay off for him. Okay, can we just?
This is not a Hail Mary. This is, I counterpicked this one. I was hoping to get some gain points on this one. So we'll see.
So you have a bias in reporting that people are feeling this game is kind of mid with the
What does
PvP
my
experience.
reporting have to do with anything?
I'm
What
just
can't go
calling it
anywhere.
out there for people to
Are they
understand.
in the room right now, Brad?
It doesn't make any sense. He can't drop the game. I can't drop the counter pick. It is what it is.
Who are these people?
My
I think
opinion of the
you're
game
trying to
is-
manifest, Brad. I think you're trying to put your intention into the universe and have it become reality.
Yeah, where are these receipts? I need
Look,
to read this
he's
myself.
using supernatural powers on us now.
But I'm looking forward to playing it this weekend. It
89 all
runs
the way.
through Sunday. And
When does that game actually launch? Like,
this summer, I think they said.
I think it's May, right? No.
No, I think it's more like a July-ish something or other.
Okay. Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah. And also because
Interesting.
it is a RE Engine game, it's going to run very well on a lot of PCs. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'll be interested. I have no intention of playing this game, but I'll be really interested to see how it plays out. All right, Crispy, you're up.
Okay, I want to talk really quickly about two games I'm excited about. D2 and D4.
Dark
Destiny
Dreams
2.
Don't Die?
Destiny 2 has been going through its current season, which is called Season of... I just looked it up and I can't even remember.
The Witch.
Season of the Witch. Something like that.
You're
Yeah.
gonna bring us some of that sweet Lightfall demo footage for a few.
I should. I
future
finished
show?
Lightfall, and you know the thing about Lightfall is,
Dies of Mid.
it does die of mid a little bit. It's like it's like the current. So standards were kind of set pretty high. Season of Defiance, that's what it's called. Standards were set kind of high by the last expansion, which was well received, which was really good. That was Witch Queen. A lot of cool stuff happens in that campaign. The story like goes somewhere and reveals information, and you're like, whoa. And Lightfall didn't really do that. Lightfall kind of like introduces a lot of questions, doesn't give you any answers, leaves you kind of more confused than when you started. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And then all the interesting story stuff is like in the seasons for some reason, which I get it. They want to stretch that storytelling out over the whole year, but it means like, I mean, you're paying a lot of money to get access to all this content, for a year, which, hey, I mean, your mileage may vary there. But Season of Defiance so far has been pretty cool. Really good, like the seasonal activity, these like Defiant battlegrounds that you're doing, have been pretty cool so far. Been having a lot of fun. They just premiered a new one this week where you actually like run through the Ascendant Plane to get up into space, and it's just like kind of cool vibe. There's cool story moment stuff going on. I've been really invested in a subplot between Amanda Holiday and the Crow. They're having like this whole interpersonal beef where they were like kind of in love with each other, but now they're like on the rocks, and it's like this whole thing that's been developing. It's really fun. I'm really enjoying it. Destiny 2 still pretty cool. And then Diablo 4, the chicken beta starts tomorrow.
The chicken beta.
Yeah.
But you're not playing the chicken beta.
No, I am.
Oh,
going
can't
to.
see.
So
Okay.
you
I will
did.
be.
So you did get the chicken.
I didn't get the chicken.
Okay, so it's not. It's only the chicken
You
beta.
can get in.
You get the
You can
chicken.
you can get in the chicken beta too if you just pre-order the game. Which
No. That's
whatever. But
even though they're the same beta,
it's
only
a
the
chicken
people
beta
who
because they're like, hey, buy a KFC Double Down sandwich and we'll let you play Diablo 4 this weekend. What a grotesque moral calculation that is. But whatever. I mean, Diablo
deal
4
with the
looks
devil.
sick. It is a deal with the devil. It looks sick. Might be worth it. Who knows? Early gameplay previews have all been
And the devil's
pretty
name is Colonel
fucking hype.
Sanders.
I hope it sucks.
I hope it's good. I hope it's really good, and I think it will be. It's looking kind of crazy. I'm excited. We'll
So,
see.
Do you think
But
the
next
secret
weekend's
level,
beta will be free, so you don't have to buy anything to play
Do you-
next weekend.
Do you think the secret level this time around is going to be a chicken level?
Dude,
Like how
I don't know.
last time was a unicorn level and
To you by
the previous one was a
KFC.
cow
I don't know.
level?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the cow level, and then the not cow level, and then Whimsyshire and Whimsydale and all that shit. I don't
Apparently
know. I
Slade-
mean, I really hope.
Slade just got a Diablo 4 beta that he doesn't care about. He just really wanted to double down.
Hell yeah.
So everybody who
Yeah.
gets a double down gets a beta code.
The double down
Yes.
is not good.
Supposedly, apparently, there's a bunch of stuff you can buy, but you have to like order it through KFC's app or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Although
That's
if
I
you're
think
in,
people are ordering the sandwich and then calling and saying, "Please don't make that food. I don't want it."
if you
Yeah.
actually live in
Keep it.
South Korea, they gave away codes with the triple down. They have their own triple sandwich.
Interesting.
That's
insane.
just.
But
death, in my
hey,
opinion.
it doesn't have bread in it, so maybe no carbs.
Why couldn't they make this deal with Raising Cane's? God damn it!
Right?
Because Cane's is only in
That was a
certain parts
rhetorical
of the United
question, Chris
States.
Davis.
Yeah.
I'm just
Rhetorical
saying. No,
question.
I agree with you
Yeah.
wholly.
Or Chick-fil-A. What if you had to go to Chick-fil-A to get a demo for
It's like
Diablo?
triply morally questionable.
Joke works on so
It's
many
like,
levels.
I don't know.
Chris.
Yeah. I mean,
Crispy.
we live in a post-Hogwarts world, so I mean, it's like all bets are off. I don't care. Like, who do I have to strangle to death to get a beta code for Diablo?
Holy shit, that was
I don't
funny.
know.
Anything else,
We'll see.
Crispy?
Nope. I think I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, my 4-player minute starts now. I'll just take a second to talk about. I know we've talked a lot about The Last of Us. I've talked a lot about The Last of Us in the past 9 weeks, I suppose. But I just want to reiterate how kind of blown away I am by like this. I never thought in a million years an adaptation like this would turn out so well. But I think it's been a really cool process because one, they've been so open about like showing like behind the scenes stuffs and like doing this podcast and having these really in-depth conversations about the story that I loved. And hearing these conversations happen again 10 years later with people who have never experienced the story has been super awesome. And, you know, looking forward to season 2 for obvious reasons, but also just fascinated by like kind of the like the complicate, like how do you adapt that story into a season of television without also threatening to have the audience not follow the main character for a really long time. You know what I mean? Like I'm fascinated to see what approach they're going to take to season 2, but also really excited because I do love that game. I love that story, and if anything, they've proven that they have a process that works, and I just hope they continue doing what they're doing because so far so good. I also want to quickly give a shout out to Chained Echoes. I am super close to finishing that game. In fact, I thought I was going to finish it last night. But that game is very good, and I haven't really played a game like this in a very long time, which is again why I said it was kind of ironic that the first quote unquote. I know we talked last week about not using this term, but I don't know how else to describe it, which is I guess part of the problem. I haven't played a quote unquote JRPG like this in a very, very,
He
very
said it.
long
He
time.
said the thing.
I know. Give me a fucking alternate
Send him to
term. Give me an alternate term. I'm using it to describe the style of RPG, which is you know different.
Well, you know, not not like Diablo, more of a traditional, not Diablo like.
Sure. I haven't played an RPG like this in a long time, right? And you know what? Yeah, that was easy. Why can't we just say it like that?
What, like an action RPG?
No, why don't I just
Like
say I haven't
Diablo.
played an RPG like this? Y'all know what I'm talking about. I didn't need to use the term. And it's just kind of funny that I've spent almost 46 hours with this game, and it's just, man, it's made me really excited to go try like Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger, two huge holes in my gaming history that I would love to fill. So yeah, fill those holes. But yeah, if you're looking for that style of game, I can't recommend Chained Echoes enough. It's quite good. But on a related note, I haven't been able to get the Revival Club going again in 2023. Usually I kind of put it on hold right around the time we start doing Game of the Year stuff with the intention of picking it back up when we're done. It's obviously we've talked a lot about how 2023 has been super front loaded. It's super packed with games. So I just haven't had a ton of time. But I think I'm going to get a poll up tomorrow. And we talked about it a little bit before the podcast. And I think we're looking at like Baldur's Gate 2 and BioShock and Final Fantasy VI. And was there a fourth game we talked about?
An Armored Core game, probably.
An Armored Core game. Yeah, Armored Core. Because we like to try and keep these relevant. So hopefully, with any luck, I'll get that poll up tomorrow. So if you're interested in participating in the Revival Club, keep an eye out for it. I'll post it in the channel in Discord. And that's it. That's our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, we'll be back next Thursday for another episode. In the meantime, join us in Discord at discord.gg/4player. And of course, you can find all of our podcasts on 4playernetwork.com or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. And again, if you like our show, if you listen to it regularly, please go take a moment to go leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. If you just watch on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell or whatever the fuck it is. I don't even know anymore. Just, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Just let us know. We love to hear from you. In the meantime, guys, be good to each other, play video games, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Bye.